on his way, so we're gonna give him 5 minutes. I guess there's a ton of traffic, Danny said, and because of fires going on, so. There are, but one called us. I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Hap will be here shortly. If we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, our moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll have the report from Beth, who is the manager at the Sarlin Library.
Is this working? Is that good? Okay. Thank you. I was scared. Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Buchanan. I'm the manager of the Sarlin Library in Liberty, and I'm just here to give you an overview of our last year. So we've had 17,572 visitors so far this year. Using last year's numbers as a projection for the last quarter, we are on track to exceed our previous visitor numbers by 2,000 plus people for the year. My expectations for this are high because we have not yet entered summer reading, and that is one of our busiest portions of the year. We have issued 217 passports this fiscal year. In January of 2025, we issued a record number of passports. That was 58 in 1 month. We began offering notary services in September of 2024. In 6 months, we have provided notary services to 35 community members. Those numbers do not include documents that were notarized as a part of the passport process. So those numbers are actually higher, but we do not include them. This far, we have also hosted 122 programs. That includes passive, that you can participate in inside the library without a staff member, or active programs. Those programs have been attended by 2,578 children and 2,457 adults. This is a dramatic increase over last year's numbers, and with summer reading on the horizon, I anticipate that this will be our most successful programming year to date. Last year, we fostered several community partnerships. Two of our largest are with Food Share, a local nonprofit that helps bring produce to areas of need. As you may know, Liberty only has one grocery store. So through this program, we have been able to provide fresh, locally sourced produce at an affordable price to 20 to 40 community members per month. We also have our STEM program. If any of you were here when I gave my last report, that was just getting on its feet. This year, we will be extending that for our summer program. So that includes adding an art aspect to go from STEM to STEAM. And we are currently serving 2 groups of children. One is anyone who signs up for free through the library, and the other is the Liberty Elementary School Goalpost program. So that program serves low-income families in need of after-school care. In total, we have been able to provide free STEM education to 60 to 70 children twice a month. So 120 children in 1 month. We have all plans to expand that program in the fall to absorb the rest of the elementary school's after-school care. So that's really great. Brief, the Blue Ridge Innovation and Entrepreneurship Foundation is really wonderful, and we are very lucky to have them. We also partnered with Liberty Elementary School. We just opened our seed library. I don't know if anyone here has used it, but we opened this year in February. So far, we have given out 5,375 packs of seeds, and volunteers are still repacking. In total, we have 9,928 packs. So we are on track to exceed 10,000 packs of seeds this year, given out to the community for free. And that includes seeds we purchased with grant money from our partnership with the Native Plant Society of South Carolina, who also works with us to do native plant education. So we don't have final numbers yet for that. So check back and come in, because if you have a library card, you can get 10 packs of seeds per week for free. And then we have continued to see a rise in our meeting room usage. Our largest meeting room has been reserved 142 times this year so far and used by 2,102 people this fiscal year. Our smaller rooms have been used 369 times by 865 people, and we do expect to also see record numbers for those spaces this fiscal year. And that's everything.
Great.
Thank you.
public comment. There are 19 people, I'm sorry, who have signed up to speak tonight. I'd like to extend time to allow all participants to speak, but I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do you have a second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, then we'll have to limit it to 10. Okay,
I make a motion that we reduce the amount of time that each person has to 2 minutes and give everybody the opportunity to talk. It only extends the time we'd be here by 10 minutes. Did it just pass? Did it not? I wasn't looking. Did it pass or did it not pass?
it did not pass.
Okay. All right. So
should be able to hear.
since that didn't pass, that's going to limit the entire discussion to 30 minutes, right?
Right.
Okay, so I make a motion that we give everybody 2 minutes to speak, and that way the 19 people, that's only 38 minutes. It's an 8-minute extension. It gives everybody a chance to have their voice.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second to move?
And there is a discussion point to that, right?
Yeah.
Did I get a second?
But I'll second.
Okay, so the point is, you may have wrote a 3-minute speech, but other folks wrote a 3-minute speech they're not going to get to give. So you might have to abridge it a little bit, but it gives the other folks in the room an opportunity to speak. So your choice is to silence 10 people in the room, to let 9 other people speak. That's not America. That's not good government. So I would implore you folks to spend 8 more minutes here tonight listening to folks in the room speak. So if we can't give everybody that took the time to sign up to come and speak in front of us, I'm going to, Ms. Chairman.
Yes.
Ms. Chairperson, whatever I'm supposed to call
You
you.
can call me man, I don't care.
Lori,
Lori,
can we get order in the room, please?
yes. I'm sorry. Please.
The idea of participatory government is to give people the opportunity to get in front of us and speak. I understand that 19 times 3 would be an hour of folks talking, but I cannot see.
Please, if you cannot be quiet and respectful, then we're going to ask you to leave.
Unfortunately, this is not a town hall, right? So it's not an out and back with folks, even though I did abridge that by seeming as though I was directing it to the person that made the outburst earlier. It's worth an extra 8 minutes to give these folks an opportunity to speak, and I think it's worth everybody in the room's time to give a little bit of your time away to someone else, because somebody has to arbitrarily pick the 10 that will get to speak tonight.
We don't take comments until we vote on it. Does anyone else have any discussion? Yes, no? All those in favor? All those opposed?
I make a substitute motion that we just open the floor tonight for everybody to speak about whatever subject they would like, as long as it pertains to the issues on the catalog tonight. Because it's a constitutional right to get up in front of your government entity and speak. It's a motion.
I second. Discussion?
Point of order. I'd like for the minutes to note that I stand completely opposed to the idea of telling folks they can't speak in front of a government entity.
Okay, so we opposed even giving them the 2 minutes and letting everyone speak?
Hold on,
Pardon me?
do we vote on it?
Yes, I'm saying all those in favor, and then I'm asking for those opposed.
I don't think was there a second for that one?
Yes, I second it. And all those in favor
Of what?
of cutting it to 2 minutes and letting everyone on the list speak?
I think we had that vote.
I think
What
we
I'm
just
off-
did that.
Against the,
Oh, now he wants, I'm sorry.
What I'm offering is that we suspend the time limit that we have, that way everyone
Right.
will have their 3 minutes. That was my third motion.
Second. Discussion?
My discussion point here is it's going to be kind of hard for us to go out here in the community and argue that we're not for abridging people's constitutional rights if you guys are going to vote from the very beginning to tell folks in this room that their opinion doesn't matter to you, to spend an extra 20 or 30 minutes here in this thing that you volunteered to do in service of the community. So I just think that it's the right thing to do to let folks that will come out here in front of us to speak to us have the opportunity to stand up and speak. And if they don't get the opportunity to do that, I will meet you and buy you breakfast. I will meet you and buy you lunch. I will do whatever I have to do to listen to your voice, because just to be completely honest with you, I stand completely against the idea of censoring folks on the outright.
If this is discussion, it's not as much censoring people. It's the matter of time at hand that we need. We've allotted the time. We have people, we have done this before. We have a limit of 3 minutes, 10 people, and that's been our practice. We have, as a matter of fact, I was the one that voted, I guess it was the last or the time before, that we had 17, that we extend the time for the people. But we've got a lot of folks here tonight, and so we give them, okay, on Monday, I believe it is, you can begin sending in before the meeting. And so they will have a turn next meeting.
Well, that's not necessarily true if everybody gets it in at like midnight on Monday.
You don't have to, this is my opinion, okay? You don't have to answer it.
All right.
It's just that my opinion.
My opinion is that we're here to listen to the community, and we should give them the time to speak. Any other discussion?
I would just comment that I've sat through public meetings for the better part of 12 years, 14 years. I've had folks come in wearing shirts with my face on them and really, really unflattering things written about me. I've had to listen to people say some of the dumbest stuff, and I've heard people say things that completely changed my mind. And the reality of it is, again, this is America. These folks, the nine that are gonna get excluded tonight, spent time to write a speech. It's no easy feat. Half of them probably stood in front of the mirror and gave that speech 4 or 5 times so they can make their 3 minutes happen. They thought that it was important enough to come in front of us. We thought it was important enough to listen to folks, to volunteer for these roles. Government, representation of the people. So at the end of the day, if you're telling the folks that half of them don't deserve the opportunity to get up and speak to us, out of the gate you're setting the context to validate the argument tonight that's going to be that we want to censor folks' beliefs and take information away from them. Some of the folks here are going to argue that. All you've done is set the foundation for them to be right.
You know what? We've already wasted 20 minutes.
I still have the
arguing.
floor.
Let's just go ahead and do this.
Point.
Yeah.
First
agreed.
off, we are not wasting our time by discussing the freedoms of people. That's, if you think it's a waste of time, then why are you
We
sitting
are
on this board?
spending our time spinning our wheels. We
Then
can go ahead and
why-
vote and listen
then
to
we're back-
everybody and be done with it.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. The parliamentary procedures gives me the right to do what I'm doing. That's the rules that we work under. And again, this is America. People deserve the right to speak about the issue.
Every
You
other-
volunteered for the role.
every other
Give them the
time
right, or
we've
make
cut
sure,
people
I
off
have the
for 30
floor,
minutes.
Mr. Chairman. Give them the respect and the dignity of their voice, or just admit that there's an agenda here that wants to close people's voices. It's worthy of these people's time and effort to hear them
Can I say
speak their
something?
voice.
Not
When you have
until
the
he's
floor, you
done.
certainly can.
Every other
Give these
time.
When he is done, right now
thought
he
he was
has the
finished.
floor.
Give these folks, at the cost of another 8 minutes of your life, or in my case, what I just said a second ago, is suspend the time limit on the total and give everybody a chance. So at the worst, it's going to be 58 minutes or 57 minutes of time for these folks to talk about an issue that was enough for them to come out here tonight. Everybody here could be at home watching Netflix, or cutting their grass, or doing something else equally as inane, but they're here. Give them the power of their voice to represent their interests in front of us. This is, again, America, and this is not a freaking,
So do you want to bring, since she has said that to give him the time, do you want to bring it back to the original motion of extending the time and allowing everyone to speak for 3 minutes?
if she wants to make that substitute motion, I would certainly second it.
Do you want to go ahead and make that second?
Is
I would
that a
like to
motion
s-
for everybody, or just the people who signed up to speak?
Everybody who's signed up to speak, the 19, we're back to the original motion, if she will amend it.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Every other time, we have cut it off at 30 minutes. Every other time.
We
without
have
problem.
we have extended it a couple
One
different
time.
times.
One time. Well, I've been here. But yes, I will make that motion again,
I'll
so that we
second
can
it.
move on with this meeting.
Discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, with that being said, The Pickens County Library Board shall allow 3 minutes per speaker for public comment. A maximum of 30 minutes shall be allowed for speakers at each meeting unless time is extended by a majority vote of the library board. Public comment is limited to matters relevant to library business. Issues relevant to library business are defined to mean information about library events, issues that the library has the authority to address, items listed on the agenda, and items or issues previously voted on by the library board or that the library board has the authority to consider or vote on in the future. The board chairperson may interrupt or stop a speaker if the public comment is irrelevant to library business, unreasonably repetitious, or substantially disruptive. No speaker may employ language that is obscene, scurrilous, or recklessly defamatory in comments that describe board members, any other participants at the meetings, or library staff, including their opinions, proposals, and duly constituted actions. No conduct shall be tolerated or allowed that unreasonably provokes or disturbs another or interferes with the conduct of a peaceful meeting. Board members may, but will generally not respond to comments from the speakers. The board chairperson, other presiding officer, or the library director may respond to specific inquiries as appropriate or may direct speakers to the appropriate staff member for assistance. The board may comment, take action, or not take action with respect to public comment at a future board meeting as it deems appropriate. The first speaker is Jennifer Whitlock, sorry.
I'll be happy to abridge my original speech to give others more time. So, you'll have a copy of my script in front of you. I'm going to just get straight to the facts then. Fact: the South Carolina State Legislature passed Proviso 27.1, which went into effect on July 1st, 2024, stating that prior to receiving state funds, county libraries must certify that they do not offer any books or materials that appear to the prudent interest of children under the age of 17 in children's, youth, or teen book sections of libraries, and are only made available with explicit parental consent. Fact: on August 15th, 2024, Library Director Stephanie Howard and Library Board Chair Lori Osborne signed the certification indicating that the county is compliant with state regulations regarding library funding. The Library Board meeting minutes verify that this document was signed without the approval of the board. Fact: library video footage can confirm that on January 31st, 2025, at 2:02 p.m., an unaccompanied minor checked out 3 books from the teen section of the Easley Library using the distinguishable yellow minor library card. Illustrations and text showing the prurient interest of these books are included in the packet handed to you. Fact: falsifying documentation to receive state funding is fraud. In South Carolina, the punishment for this crime depends on the value of the economic advantage. For the first offense of $50,000 or more, it is classified as a felony punishable by fines and/or up to 10 years in prison. So, if you think you can convince a jury that the illustrations and text that I included from these books aren't harmful to children, good luck to you. Our lawyer up.
Janelle, please hold. I'm going to ask everybody on both sides tonight to please withhold your applause and your comments from the audience so that we can continue. We extended the time, so be courteous. Janelle Raines.
Please look at the copy I gave you of the regulation criteria that is being used based on South Carolina law that our South Carolina Department of Education uses to decide whether or not to remove a book from being used in our schools. it is lawyer recommended. If a book is not appropriate for libraries in our tax-supported schools, it also shouldn't be appropriate for minors in our public libraries either. You should be using this law to move books to the adult section and in your collection policy as well. The South Carolina Department of Ed's Review Board's recent meeting that I watched had a unanimous decision to remove 10 books from all of South Carolina schools. They previously removed 9. This South Carolina State Committee was not swayed by emotions or feelings of citizens, or even authors on how they think their storyline is worthy, or that the author is trying to help children know they are not alone. What mattered to this board were written passages in the books that violated the obscenity law for minors. The law is clear, but yet the majority of you on this board are still allowing your emotions and feelings to make decisions. God-fearing, morality-supporting adults should not be fine with obscene material being easily accessed by minors. The state library director was clear. There are 2 sections of a library, children and adults. You're ignoring her. You are still allowing obscene books in our children's section of the library. You are also ignoring the South Carolina budget proviso in place and signing documents that state you are in compliance with that proviso when clearly you aren't. The books you're considering tonight, Brave Face and The Bluest Eye, also violate lawful criteria, specifically sections A, B, D, and E in the law. One of many passages from the book, Bluest Eye, on page 120 reads, "Then he will lean his head down and bite my tit. Then I don't want him to rub my stomach anymore. I want him to put his hands between my legs. I pretend to wake up and turn to him, but not opening my legs. I want him to open them for me. He does, and I be soft and wet where his fingers are strong and hard." One of the many passages from the book Brave Face on page 305 reads, "Parker unbuttoned his shorts and tugged them down around his knees. He rubbed his dick against my thigh. 3, maybe 4 times. His body stiffened, and then he came on the leg of my jeans. I mopped up the mess he squirted on my pants." Do the right thing tonight. Someone on this board
Thank you.
make
Time.
a motion to
Time.
follow South Carolina
Bridget
law.
Greenberger. All right, please, please. Please. Bridget Greenberger.
Good evening. This excerpt is from The Bluest Eye, which was challenged a year ago tomorrow, and it is still in the youth section for minors 13 to 17, an easily central and ebook. The careful design was marred occasionally by rare but keen sexual cravings. He could have been an active homosexual but lacked the courage. Bestiality did not occur to him, and sodomy was quite out of the question, for he did not experience sustained erections and could not endure the thought of somebody else's. And besides, the one thing that disgusted him more than entering and caressing a woman was caressing and being caressed by a man. In any case, his cravings, although intense, never relished physical contact. He abhorred flesh on flesh. His intentions, therefore, gradually settled on those humans whose bodies were least offensive, children. And since he was too diffident to confront homosexuality, and since little boys were insulting, scary, and stubborn, he further limited his interest to little girls. They were usually manageable and frequently seductive. His sexuality was anything but lewd. His patronage of little girls smacked of innocence and was associated in his mind with cleanliness. This is disgusting. It's not even the worst part of the book, okay? There's no swearing in it, nothing, but look at the intent, okay? This mentally ill sicko preys on children, specifically targets little girls. Doesn't this strike a moral chord with you who continue with this charade? Don't you have little girls in your families? If not, if this does not abhor you, please examine yourself. It is shocking to me that intelligent adults can go through endless, can go through, hang on. Yeah, very funny. my phone, okay, can go through endless rounds of debate and struggle trying to decide if books claiming virtue with graphic depictions of sexual acts should be accessible to children. This discussion has gone on for at least 2 years, and it has to stop now. There is nothing virtuous, uplifting, or enlightening about graphic depictions of sexual acts and endless streams of expletives and profane words and intentions. This serves no educational purpose for our children. In fact, for impressionable young minds, it is exactly the opposite. We should all know that. We, in fact, as adults, do know that. You have standards of conduct and decorum required in this boardroom which prohibit the use of language found in the books which you have been asked to remove, and yet there continues to be debate and delay in taking them out. Please explain to me how that works. How is that okay? It's not allowed for adults in this boardroom, but it's okay for kids to be exposed to this trash. The Pickens County Library System is currently not in compliance with state.
Thank you. Time. Time. Kathy Travers.
All right. First off, I wanted to say to this board and everyone that may have been offended by our convictions concerning no porn to minors. We get it that you feel convinced about what you think and believe. It is a free country, and we all appreciate and respect that freedom. I honestly don't think any of us hate one another. We just think differently. Many in this room are very concerned and worried. Our country, our counties, and our cities are not as safe as they once were. The last several years, we have all seen and heard of the mass immigration. There are reported that 300,000 immigrant children are missing. One border crossing interview I watched several months ago was of children traveling by themselves. The reporter asked them where they were going, and they replied excitedly, Florida. I always think about how happy they were, just saying Florida. Probably heard stories of Disney World. My hope for them is a happy ending to their travels alone, but who knows for sure with 300,000 unaccounted for. Human trafficking and sexual exploitation is a moneymaker in our country, and desensitization to porn is very risky. Recently at a local library, I noticed all the things available to children. Wholesome activities like fishing poles, telescopes, steel drums, just to name a few. Some wonderful tools to nurture and create childhood memories. And I wanted to say kudos to whoever in the library thought of this. It's a very positive thing. So mine and many here only desire for all our county's children's choices that make them smile and nurture their dreams for their future. The same dreams on those little children standing in that immigration line of going to Florida and maybe even Disney World. Thank you for your time.
May Anderson.
When I was little, I couldn't wait to grow up, to make my own choices, to figure out who I am. Now, I'm learning that I have to fight to protect the freedoms I look forward to so much. And for me, the freedom to read is one of them. I wish that wasn't the case, and I wish I didn't have to do this. Unfortunately, this is what it has come to. I've been talked about over my head more times than I can count, so I have to counter all of the voices claiming that I'm a victim of the books that I read. I owe it to myself. So, and be honest with me, do I look like a victim to you? When I was 13, my parents gave me permission to visit the young adult section of our library. I didn't rush to check out all the romance books I could find. I promise, my parents knew what I was reading. I wasn't exposed to anything that I was uncomfortable with. Every book I've read from the YA section of our library has passed the Miller test. And every book I've read from the YA section, I read by choice. What even is a victim? Is everyone below the age of 18 who has willfully read or seen art considered impure now a victim? Are children who have seen Michelangelo's David now victims? Who is a victim? Every time a book is taken out of the young adult section, I lose the opportunity to find my new favorite book. Honestly, in that way, maybe I am a victim. Maybe I'm becoming more of a victim now than I ever have been, because each time the young adult section loses a book, I lose an opportunity. To me, this argument isn't just about opposing viewpoints. It's a tragedy. A loss is something that I love. When it comes down to it, most people here can go on with their lives when they leave this room. They can check the same things out at the library. They can read what they want. The only people that can't do that are the teenagers. Decisions or changes regarding the teen section of the library can't just be made by adults. The teen patrons need a voice. On that note, whether or not a parent monitors their teens' reading is up to them, and I'm not trying to change that. Many people claim that they're trying to make the library safer for teens. That's laughable, because the only time I've ever felt unsafe at the library was at one of these meetings. I'm a victim of the decisions happening above my head more than I've ever been a victim of a book. I'm not a child. My peers and I have grown up, so when we stand up, no one can make decisions over our head anymore. We refuse to be looked over or talked about like we're not in the room. We refuse to be victims. Thank you.
Deborah Hudson.
Good evening to all. On March 21st, 2024, I submitted a reconsideration request for a fictional book this board will be discussing tonight, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I did not receive a response from the library staff until December 30th, 2024. I disagreed with their decision to keep this book in the young adults section, which is a misnomer since the state recognizes ages 13 through 17 as as minors, not adults. I immediately made my appeal to the board on December 30th, which meant each of you had to read this book and encounter explicit sexual depictions of incest, rape, adultery, and pedophilia, and for that, I apologize. In July of 2024, Proviso 27.1 was put into place by the South Carolina legislature to protect the minds of the minors from inappropriate material by specifically linking state library funds to certain requirements. Members of this board did not all agree that Pickens was in compliance. That is a red flag. I would argue that keeping The Bluest Eye in the young adult section would be enough evidence to stop funding, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are a host of books that are in violation of this proviso. Part of the proviso gives some leeway for minors to access books if they have explicit parental consent, meaning their parents agreed for them to have a certain library card. But how many parents would give consent if they were given full disclosure and samples of what is embedded within the controversial books? When evaluating if a book for minors is age appropriate, it is important not to get sidetracked from the deciding factor. It either has explicit sexual descriptions of sex acts or it doesn't. An author's theme, creativity, or intent is irrelevant when certain content makes it too obscene to read it aloud to children. That is what I call failing the mother test. I do value the freedom to read, but all freedom comes with boundaries to keep law and order. Just as nudity in a public place would be considered indecent exposure and violate our laws, graphic sexual material in books accessible to minors in public libraries is violating indecent exposure laws for their minds. In fact, South Carolina Code of Laws was recently cited by a lawyer at a South Carolina Materials Review Board meeting in Columbia, which led to a unanimous decision that 10 books were not appropriate for school curriculum. I urge you again to please revise your book collection policy, look at Greenville's, and respond with more urgency when an inappropriate content is brought to your attention. A year was a long time to wait. This week, I was encouraged to see an article reporting that the Georgia Senate passed a bill removing legal protection for libraries, providing...
Thank you. Brittany Fowler.
Good evening. My name is Brittany Fowler, and I was born and raised and am a proud resident of Pickens County, and I'm here tonight as a passionate advocate for our libraries. Last time I spoke about gratitude and how deeply grateful I am for our library system, but tonight I want to talk about luck. And I don't mean luck in the sense of chance or coincidence. I mean the kind of luck that comes from having something truly special, something that enriches our lives every day. In the Pickens County, we are lucky to have an outstanding library system. Step into any branch and you'll quickly realize how fortunate we are. Parents and children gather for story time, students diving into research and playing games, job seekers using resources to take their next step, and book lovers discovering their next great read. Every corner of the library holds a little bit of magic. And that magic doesn't happen by chance. It happens because of dedicated librarians, hardworking staff, and a community that believes in the power of knowledge and access for all. Years ago, I had the privilege of delivering books to homebound residents. I will never forget one sweet lady who received a fresh stack of library books with so much excitement. She told me getting new books delivered feels like Christmas morning, but all year long. what luck it is to have a library that brings that kind of joy. Not just to some, but to everyone. From toddlers to seniors, from lifelong learners to those discovering books for the first time. And let's not forget, a strong, thriving library is never an accident. It is a choice, it is a community investment, and it is the result of committed professionals who believe that knowledge, literacy, and opportunity should not be left to luck alone. So tonight, I want to say thank you to the staff, the librarians, the board, and every supporter of our library. We are lucky to have you. And even more than that, Pickens County is lucky to have a library that works every day to ensure that access to information, learning, and community is never left up to chance. Thank you.
Mark Kilburn.
Hi, I'm Mark Kilburn, and thanks for letting me speak, and thanks for everything you guys do on the board and run the library. So, as you've heard by now, the books that have been challenged are not just about kissing or the wonders of procreation as you may naturally find on a farm. These books contain vulgar, inappropriate language, and they're aimed at young readers. Children that inadvertently stumble upon these books in the stacks can be harmed by the discoveries. We're asking that the children be shielded from that. We're also asking for a policy that recognizes the harm in these books and that also greatly slows down the volume of the books that are coming into the library in the first place. These proposed policies do not need to be a regurgitation of the American Library Association. They're a large part of the problem. The recent past president of the ALA published a paper in the Library Quarterly entitled Queering the Catalog, Queer Theory and the Politics of Correction. It's about attacking the categories that are in the card catalog so that they're more inclusive, so that when people come and look up a book that they're interested in, they can find themselves in the card catalog. And that way, they're not marginalized. What other types of policies would the ALA put in place to get this viewpoint out to our young readers? But the books aren't the only issue here. There's a budget proviso in place that the library must adhere to. It's been mentioned, but it's being ignored. A certification was signed by the chairman, but not voted on by the board. The certification did not address the proviso language, and to my knowledge, it's never been redone or recertified. It appears the issue is being willfully ignored by the board and the director, and this needs to be addressed. There's also an ethical scandal that one of the recently appointed board members, allegations were made publicly about these things, but they appear to be unfounded, and yet there's been no retractions or anything by the director or the board. Why have the renovations been taking so long to get done? Where's the money been spent on these projects so far? I'm not really sure. We don't really know, I don't think. The director of the library, has she ever had an employment evaluation? It looks like on the agenda that might be coming up, but the board oversees the director, and it's not the other way around. All these things taken together show that the board needs to understand their purpose and their role and put aside personal ideologies for the good of the library. They need to act like a board that represents all patrons and are good stewards of our important resources, which are our children. Thank you.
Abby Clark.
First of all, thank you so much, and let me start by sharing an analogy that I believe highlights the complexities that we're all currently being addressed with. Fact, I recently conducted research across multiple pages of news articles and reports. In my research, I found that 40 arrest cases and abuse were perpetrated by youth pastors and pastors in South Carolina, all according from just 2019 forward. This was a part of a much larger investigation from different branches, and it was about 700 people nationwide that were reported with the Southern Baptist Convention. 28 of them were from this state. These minors would agree this failed the mother test. It seems like a stark contrast, but here's the important connection. We must ask ourselves, what purpose does it serve to target an entire community based on the actions of a few? Specifically, I'm referencing recent calls to remove or relegate the global majority group or LGBTQ+ group books from the library in the name of protecting children from from harm and explicit content. I can't help but draw this analogy to another part of our society that's under the scrutiny: churches. It's been 40 plus since 2019. Imagine for a moment that the response to the abusive actions of these people is just the count, and that's just me counting 4 pages of research before I stopped. Legitimate research. We decided to relegate church services so they were only accessible to adults even when the parents disagreed. That's ridiculous, is it not? It would just seem wrong to assume that every church member is somehow complicit in committing those crimes. It is equally wrong to assume that every person of the global community, LGBTQ plus books, that wrote LGBTQ plus books in our community, are actively hell-bent on corrupting our youth. Both scenarios, restricting materials or choices under the guise of protection, serves as a flawed purpose. It creates barriers against American citizens who should enjoy constitutional protections under the First and 14th Amendments, and also access representations of themselves. One wonders if the same groups are using their resources to actively uncover the harm within their other safe spaces, or if this is just simply a targeted matter. I can only assume they're doing that, because protecting is the issue at hand. However, I sincerely doubt it, as a large majority of these pastors are currently practicing, have been released from prison, still involved in their churches, and were accused from practicing in other states. If we truly believe the interest of protecting children is at hand, we must consider the bigger picture. Studies show that the large population committing harmful acts against children are straight white males, and no one is asking to remove that entire group from the narrative. It is through support, education, and understanding that we can help circumvent future harm. Books in our communities serve as a tool for empathy, education, growth. To remove those books based on our preconceived fear of stereotypes is to rob children and adults and the community.
Good evening, Library Board. Is anyone in this room worried that their car may be stolen while in this meeting? Of course not. If you're not concerned, if you were concerned, you would not be here. After all, our society only functions when we all agree on a standard of morality. Everyone knows that stealing is wrong. Therefore, rest assured, your car will be in the parking lot when you leave. And this morality stealing in this case is not set by the public, the library board, the librarians, or the director. Morality is set by God. That is well understood, and we all appreciate this morality set by God and written in His Word. But then we enter the library, where books are being accepted and promoted, which are clearly in violation of not only morality that is set by God in His Word, but also in violation of South Carolina law. Friends, we cannot have it both ways. We cannot enjoy the morality set by God when it benefits us, like not stealing, but hate the morality set by God by embracing pervasively vulgar material that rapes the minds of children. For over a year, this library board has heard personal testimony of the devastating effects books of this nature has on families and society: depression, addiction, even suicidal thoughts. Yet, you defend. Over a year, this board has been presented with facts from medical journals on how young minds cannot process or discern this material. Yet, you defend. Our state senator and the state library director has given clear guidance on what is stated in the law, and there is no doubt that this board is breaking the law. Yet, you defend. This board has made comments that they are uncomfortable with patrons reading excerpts from these books while still promoting them to innocent children. There's a reason for this. I believe in your heart you know that this material is wrong, yet, for whatever reason, you defend the lie. I have lived in rebellion to God's morality and His Word. I have suffered the consequences of believing and defending the lies that I convinced myself were truth, but I was wrong. I do not dictate what is morally right and wrong, but God does. I stand here today to ask you to once again consider the long-term, even eternal consequences of your actions. Stop defending the lie. Thank you.
Thank you, board members, for your service. I realize each of you serve for a value that you believe in. This is why I'm here. I have a book I love dearly. It has been subject to scrutiny. It has been removed from places it once stood. It has been burned. It has been destroyed. It's been hated and seen as a threat to society. My favorite book has stood the test of time. My favorite book has been translated to languages for all people. It has been smuggled into the most forbidden places in the world. People have given their lives for this book. Why would such a controversial book survive? Because this book is for all people, all time. It is a love story of a creator to his creation. It's a book that unites, but also divides. It divides the world from the spiritual. My favorite book defends the defenseless. My book says, come as innocent children, wide-eyed, open-hearted, and expectant. Do you remember as a child taking a walk in the woods, turning over rocks and logs, peering into puddles and streams? Just like my book, that never gets old. Each hike reveals something new. The book I love has adventures, taking us on a journey through a world and culture that can be cruel and misleading. But through the pages, we are told to speak truth in love. We're to call out evil in love, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. My book says children should be protected. Innocence lost can never be replaced. Awakening lust in a child and turning their minds toward their beautiful sexual journey before they have the mind to grasp their responsibility is the irreplaceable loss of an incredible gift from God. So instead of being a society hell-bent on sexualizing children, let us instead direct their hearts and their minds to the wonderful milestones they will achieve. Timing is everything. Let's not rush children into a world they are not meant to handle. So can we please clean up our library, our children's section, our young adult section, move or remove the sexual content, because it is the right thing to do.
Denise Davidson.
Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to thank she left now, for the good report from the Sarlin Library. I've come to enough of these meetings, and sadly, many of y'all have had to sit through these. There's a little twisting of the issue here. Nobody is looking to ban books. Nobody's looking to remove books from the library. The only thing that is being asked repeatedly, even with the proviso, is that these books removed from the juvenile young adult section and placed in the adult section. If there's anybody here that wants to take their child, or if they are a guardian of a young child, they can go take them and they can look at the pictures, like in the book, like it, where you can see a threesome and you can see body parts. This is what is accessible in the minor section and the juvenile, young juvenile. Like the expression or the movement, defund the police. Defund, remove money from the police. This is demoralizing the library. You are promoting for access to pornography. Nobody's asking that these books be burned, be removed. They're asked to be rehoused in the appropriate section. You cannot buy cigarettes if you're not 18, 21, whatever the age now. You cannot buy alcohol. You cannot vote until you are a certain age. And that is all anybody is asking is, number one, to comply with the proviso that was signed by the governor. And as each one of you is a board member, you are responsible for asking yourself, have I exhausted all options? I don't know what all your options might be, but it's your job to fix it because you are on the library board. You are the authority over this library. You are responsible for protecting the children. And that's all anyone is asking you to do. Thank you.
Tom Geisler?
Thank you. It says in Isaiah 10, it says, "Woe to those who enact evil statutes, and to those who constantly record unjust decisions, so as to deprive the needy of justice and rob the poor of my people of their rights, in order that widows may be their spoil, and that they may plunder their orphans." It's been a couple months since I've been speaking to you folks, but there's a few things that have happened. I just found out just today, Georgia's Senate bill passes removing legal protection to librarians. Whoa. The South Carolina legislature is still working on moving the proviso into a law, okay? And by the way, 3.2 million people are getting Social Security and they're over 120 years old, but that's all right. That's just a small minor thing. South Carolina Daily Gazette out of Charleston reports that the test scores taken from children in South Carolina from 3rd to 8th grade, 50% are reading at grade level. 45% are doing math at grade level. What are we doing to solve this problem? I would think the library would say, let's create a task force to see how we can help the schools and find some kind of program to put the children on to get remedial program to get them reading. Why not? No, we're spending our time arguing about pornography in books. Are we crazy or what? Are we crazy? We really are, I guess. And you've heard some of the stuff that's in the books. There's more going on than that. I got 21 states that have laws coming up right now. They're fighting this like crazy. I mean, this started a firestorm. In Arizona, if you have this Bill 1090, if you get this stuff in the schools, you can be prosecuted for felony. Okay, how about Indiana, House Bill 1195, remove it all from the schools, that's it. Idaho did the same thing. New Hampshire, you won't like this, parental access to all minor library records. I'd like to get an audit on this place. I want to know if you're buying this stuff or if it's given to you from publishers that want to promote their stuff. I want to see an audit. Then lastly, don't cause a little one to stumble. Don't you get that? Have you ever heard that verse? It's in Luke. If you cause a little one to stumble, there'll be a millstone tied around your neck and you'll be thrown into the sea. That doesn't sound like fun. So again, consider, we're not stopping anybody from reading. If you want to read, check these books out and take them, read them at home. I don't care. We don't want them in our public and school libraries, because they'll end up in the school libraries soon. Thank you.
Ann Kaiser.
I'd like to pause the conversation and elevate this to the level and the role and the responsibility of the library and soften the emotions being thrown about. So I'd just like to pause. Bubble. Mostly True Adventures of Homer P. Figg. Fourth Stall. Don't Judge Me. Big. These are the titles that populate the young adult section. They're surrounded by Nancy Drews, by the Hardy Boys, Dungeons and Dragons, and gosh darn, a million endless sports titles. There is no promotion of porn. There is no promotion of inappropriate content. Ben Franklin founded the first library in Philadelphia. Charleston was home to South Carolina's first library. Each and those after were established as a precedent for democracy and for the importance of accessible knowledge and community learning. Have you ever walked into a room and all eyes turned toward you?
and not in a welcoming way? Ever gone onto a ball field and people snickered at you and wondered about your ability? And that's what it feels like to be excluded. That's what it feels like to not belong. Thankfully, our libraries aren't like that at all. They're one big hug, and you've heard those described. And that was one of the founding principles, was access to all for libraries. Eliminate the Bluest Eye. That's a literary masterpiece which tells the story of being black, which would deny 24% of South Carolina's population access to that story. More importantly, it would keep us, all of us, from experiencing empathy and walking each other's shoes. Similarly, Braveface hits suicide, the potential of suicide, head on. And there is a disclaimer in there. You can choose not to read that part. Our youth today face the greatest challenges they have ever faced. They are talking more about mental health than any other generation before them. South Carolina ranks 15th in the nation for suicides in teens. So let us not deny that access. At a maximum, these heartfelt stories could save lives. At a minimum, they could teach all of us a deeper understanding and a deeper empathy. It's an honor. It is to honor the freedom of access envisioned by our founding fathers. We are not to be judge and jury. We are not to be told by an outside national organization
Thank you.
how to run our libraries. Thank you very much.
Crystal Chappelle. Crystal Chappelle. Skylar Shepherd. Renee Gahan.
Hi, my name is Renee Gahan, and she's actually said a lot of what I wanted to say. So, thank you. You know, The Bluest Eye, have y'all read it? Who's read the whole thing? Okay. The Bluest Eye, you know, it's a Nobel Prize-winning writer, and the reason for that is that her stories are universal. Yes, she was a black woman. She wrote about what she knew. And so when she was growing up, these were potentially things that she experienced herself, and she was able to place into a larger story. And these were very, very real and issues and common issues of that time. Probably not just for black girls, but also little white girls. And if anybody's old enough, you know. I know. So banning that book or removing it from the young adult section, what if there is a girl who has been continuously harassed or sexually abused by someone in her family or a close family friend and doesn't know where to go and is considering ending her life because she's shamed if she goes and talks to anyone about it? Right? She has no options. What if she gets pregnant? This story gives context to all of these things. This story is important to anyone who is a young adult because they are starting to become aware of themselves and the freedom that they have and the structure that we live in. Now, when it comes to young adult, it sounds to me like there needs to be a definition of young adult. Okay, I hope the time, anyway, young adult. This is also coming from the world of like publishing and higher up, but a young adult these days, maybe that's a different age range. Maybe that needs to be looked at. I don't know. You know, a 7-year-old should not be reading The Bluest Eye. But someone who's 14, 15, 16, 17, this is very, very relevant. Another thing, and I'm sorry, I'm all over the place because I didn't have a speech, and this is my first time coming to speak, but let's make a definition distinction. Pornography is specifically to elicit sexual feelings and lust. Prurient interest is sexual interest. So there's a difference.
Thank you. Samantha Brown.
I'm here to read for Samantha Brown, a citizen of Pickens County who wanted me to read this for her. She's here with me. I used to take my 12-year-old daughter to the library a lot. She walks around trying to find books that seem like ones she will like. She has them in her hand, and then she walks to the front desk and puts the books up there, and the librarian scans them with my daughter's children's library card. We came home, and my daughter starts reading the books. One in particular she chooses, she takes to school. I don't remember the name of that book. My daughter had a book report to do for school, so she ended up picking this book she got from the library. I assumed the book was appropriate as she checked it out of the section for her age. Her teacher looked through the book and put sticky notes all through the book, marking her concerns with the book. The teacher meets me in the car line so she can personally hand me this bad book. She knew my daughter had no business having this type of book. When I gained possession of this book, I looked at all the pages and the teacher had marked with sticky notes on the questionable age and appropriate pages. It was full of drugs, sexual stuff, and nudity. My daughter and her friend used to love going to the library together, but now I can't let them. Public library together. I no longer trust what's in the library available to my minor child. She came home from the Easley Library with books full of nudity, sexual abuse, and detail, rape, drugs, LGBTQ books. Now I have to Google every single book she picks out before she can even check them out. I can't trust that the library chooses age-appropriate books to expose my child to. I am asking that you allow parents to put restrictions on their children's library cards so they don't have access to those types of books, and to put those age-inappropriate books in the adult section. Our kids in today's society already struggle with all of this age-inappropriate sexual indoctrination. Most parents do not want these books accessible to our children. We are trying to raise them to be successful adults, not ones with all these extra problems. I really liked for my daughter to have some independent space to choose, and I didn't mind her going to the library with her friend and her mom. But I cannot let her anymore due to her having access to these types of books that I do not allow. Please fix this. Thank you.
Craig Holcomb. Craig Holcomb. Okay. We're done. Okay, approval of minutes. Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes that were sent out? The first one on the list is Library Board meeting January 16th.
I move that we approve the body of the minutes. As a whole.
He moves that we approve the body of the minutes.
As a whole.
I can't hear you.
I apologize. Big small voice. I move that we approve all the minutes.
I would draw your attention to the February 18th.
There's no second, so.
No,
So this will be the discussion.
Sorry, I'll second that.
For the.
For
point-
discussion.
For point of order, my expectation would be that we either approve like as a body, and then we can talk about individual issues. Everybody can go through and say we need edits.
Okay.
But instead of having to go through each one,
Okay.
because of
Yeah, that's fine.
timeliness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Did you second? You seconded?
He seconded.
yeah,
So now we're open for discussion.
Okay.
it's a small thing. There's a typo in February 18th minutes. Second paragraph. Mr. Parton made the motion, that's all.
Which one?
So are we,
What do you, which one?
are we just doing the 16th right
No.
now? Or all?
It's a body, and if you have, the body of the minutes.
gotcha.
And if that's what he found in the February 18th.
Okay.
What did he find?
A typo.
Oh.
should be motion instead of motion. Do you see that? Okay. Any other additions or corrections or comments?
Yes, I have a comment. For our last board meeting, on the bottom of page 4 for old business, where it says that I made a motion to table any changes to the collection development policy for now. The reason I made that motion is because we have not settled the teen versus young adult issue, and I didn't see any point in going through the collection policy until we know what we're doing about that issue. And I would like for that to be reflected in these minutes. I did not just want to end the meeting. I had a reason to table that discussion.
She's not. Anything else? So do we have a motion to approve as corrected?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Library Director's Report. Stephanie?
All right, I have a couple of events. We have a couple of events coming up involving the library. That includes the Liberty Waffle Festival on March 29th. Be sure to come out for that. We have some really great waffle keychains with the library logo on them. The Harlan Coben Author Talk on March 31st. Tickets are still available for that event, but they're going fast. And I'm excited about one of our April programs with Georgia Mountain Falconry on April 12th. They will have 2 programs, one for children and one for adults. The children's program is more about seeing the birds and learning about them. They will have a Eurasian eagle owl, a golden eagle, and other hawks and falcons. And the adult program, I've had them for a program before at a previous library. It's geared toward those who would have an interest in falconry, but also hunting small game with hawks and falcons, which is really interesting if you've never heard about that or don't know about it. That is all for my director's report, but I do have some comments on the financial report.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I have a question for you. There was some sort of a comment earlier that the library needs to participate in the education process because the education system seems to be struggling, and I was on the school board, so I can recognize that is certainly a truth. So do you guys have programs here in the library systems focused on education?
We do. I would say that almost every program focuses on some kind of education.
Fair enough. So, and they kind of a broad swath of different programs?
Yes, different programs for different age ranges.
And you guys have a mailing list. I get like a little postcard from y'all, a little flyer,
Newsletter.
monthly. So if anyone here doesn't quite understand the programs that the library are doing, the actual mission of the library, they can get on that mailing list to receive those?
Yes.
You guys send those out on a monthly?
Yes.
So what do you think?
And they're
now?
available online.
What's the percentage you think that of your programs that are significantly focused on, like falconry? Like just the idea of holding a bird and whatever, and we just talked about. What do you think what do you think that your program's percentage is focused on education?
I mean, 95%. And that's saying that if you go to an author talk, that is not educational, which it is because you're listening to an author talk about his work and creating work.
So what kind of programs would you have that wouldn't be focused on education?
Maybe if we had a musician or something, but still we have musicians for children, and that's still, engaging the children in movement and sound and dance. And so there's really no program that we have that I can think of that would not have any kind of educational component.
Could I make a comment? The lady from the Sarlin Library pointed out the STEM, and I keep up with that, and I am so impressed with the things that they are doing there for the children. I didn't realize that Liberty Elementary had another part to that. And then I was really glad to hear that the arts program is going to be added this summer. So it is not just STEM, it is STEAM for that. So, excellent educational opportunities for children.
So I have a follow-up on that, just STEM, I'm a technical guy. The Sarlin Library has a seed bank program. Well, how does that educational?
We have programs that go along with that, and there's also information about the seeds and growing and
And especially, like Beth said, native seeds and how important they are, so.
So the question would be, like, how is it not educational?
How is it not educational? I don't think there's any way that it wouldn't be educational.
Fair enough, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on the library director's report? Financial report?
Here's our current financial report. We currently have one full-time position open overall over the whole system for our historical room. I did want to mention that this is one of our few full-time professional positions that does not require a master's degree in library science. So if you or someone you know is interested, the position's posted on the county's vacancy page online. We're also working to purchase 2 vehicles with our state aid money in this FY25 budget. When we're looking at that fund and the need for, when we were looking at that fund and the need for reliable vehicles, this would be our best option to get these vehicles. They would be maintained by the county, but would need to stay with the library system for the duration of their service because they are paid for with state aid funds. We currently have a 2005 courier van with 172,376 miles that has become too small for our courier needs, and a 1999 county van for staff travel that mainly youth services staff use that has 104,000 miles. Both of these vans have problems, and they're starting to break down really frequently when we do these runs or they travel to daycares and things. So state aid funds can be used for these vehicles, so we're pursuing at least one, if not 2, vehicles in this fiscal year. We're also replacing the carpeting for the entire Liberty Library. That carpeting has failed. We're replacing some flooring on the first floor out here, the elevator and the meeting room at the Hampton Library. We're replacing the meeting room flooring and chairs in the Central Clemson Library, and I know one of our last meetings was held there, and you all understand what those chairs and that flooring looks like. So we're replacing those, and if the budget permits, replacing the flooring in the meeting room at the Village Library in Pickens. We're also working with an arborist to prune and stabilize the old home place trees in front of the Hampton Library right over here. And we hope to have the majority of these projects completed before summer reading starts. As far as the trees, they're going to prune them. These oaks out here are incredibly old, and we're going to stabilize this big magnolia because it's growing basically in 2 parts, and we're just going to hold them together. So it is close to the library, but we also want to have, decades and decades more out of those trees. As far as the library renovation, which is part of the financial report, I did get an email from Dirk, who is the county project manager today, to let me know that they have selected an HVAC contractor, and it will cost $1.85 million of our around 2.2, I believe we have available. His explanation, as I understand it, is it would be a 1-to-1 replacement like the system we currently have. I asked if this would also include heating and cooling the expansion spaces as large open rooms, and he thought so, but he is double checking on that. I think with the cost, it probably is, but I also wanted to know, I'm guessing that they're just going to design it to heat and air condition those as large spaces. We do not have any further details on a timeline, but Dirk will be managing this project, and as it gets going, I'm sure he'll be able to share some more information on it. That's all I have for the financial reports.
So Stephanie, for clarity, your anticipation is that the HVAC will accommodate the entire library, including
I believe so, with given the
space.
cost, yeah. He said he was going to double check on it because the first email he wrote, I couldn't really tell if it was a 1-to-1 replacement of what we already had or if it was going to be those spaces as well. But I think with the cost of it, it has to be.
We had assigned a committee to look at those issues.
Yes.
Can we just have the 3 committee members meet with the representative you're talking about?
I think that would be perfect, yeah.
Okay. And I'll go through the package and make sure.
And then you'll reach out to us, the 3 of us.
I didn't hear anything you just said. I'm assuming I know, I think, but I didn't
said
hear
that
it. I'm sorry, and normally, Henry, I can hear you, but I can't hear you right now.
I'm sorry. I've been
So I'm
under
so
the weather this
sorry.
week.
Can you speak louder, sir?
Or into the mic.
Yes.
We set up a building committee last meeting. And I think it'd be great if we could all meet, and I'd like the opportunity to go through the quote and the specifications and whatnot for a building this size.
That's what I thought you said, I'm sorry.
It's a relatively simple calculation to determine if the capacity is gonna handle the whole building or not, and look through it and design and whatnot, so I'd like the opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The foundation report?
As far as the foundation report, we've taken in another $195, and we are at $77,093.02.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if it's appropriate, maybe it needs to wait for our other meeting, but I was just, how'd we do that day on the we had a table out, did we sell any, no?
I
We
believe
sold
we-
a t-shirt,
Just your
I know we
t-shirt.
sold a
I
t-shirt.
believe we sold a T-shirt, and then soon after that, we did sell a leaf.
Oh, okay,
So,
well, that's good,
there you
okay,
go.
and that's on here?
That's
Yes,
Okay.
should be.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. This is the motion period of new business. Matters to be added to the agenda by the appropriate motion, second and majority vote. Did anyone have anything else that they wanted to add? Okay. Update of the library bylaws.
I wrote a proposed change following our special meeting to Article 6, which reflects actually what we've been doing, the practice, and eliminates the nominating committee, which is rather silly, given that there's 7 board members and 4 positions. So to have a nominating committee intervening in between the nominations and the elections seemed kind of silly. So the Article 6 simply states that nominations will be made for chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and treasurer shall be made at the March meeting, which will be this one, of the board. Election of these officers shall occur at the May meeting of the board, and their term will begin in July. It's fairly straightforward. So I'm recommending, and I guess we're going to go ahead and proceed with nominations. We can-
Well, first
If we
we need-
approve this
yes.
bylaw, if we approve the bylaw, we would move ahead. So I move we accept this amendment, or this change in Article 6 of the bylaws.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Clarify, please, what we're voting on.
We're voting on
The
the
second part?
proposed change in Article 6 of the bylaws.
Okay.
Yes.
Will we get a new, that actually says this to add to the book?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as you guys approve it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I don't understand the difference other than it kind of spells out when we make the nominations and whatnot, right? That's really the relevant difference?
Yes, before there was a committee.
Eliminates
there's
the
not-
Oh, okay.
There was
nominating
an
committee.
intervening
Yeah,
Oh, I got you.
it
nominating
eliminates the.
committee, which
Okay,
we're eliminating.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the bylaws? Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I need to ask a question. I didn't, when I heard you, I didn't get a motion. I was gonna make a motion for a new motion to be added to new business, but we moved right in. I'm a little slow. So we'll do that at the end, or?
We can make a motion to revisit that section.
Well, what is your, what is your,
Okay, yeah, just for new business, I wanna make a motion that we invite South Carolina Library Director, Ms. Lisa Aiken, to have a workshop to clarify the proviso, so it will help us in this process with the collection.
is that possible? Because I know that she's out.
She is out until
Oh, yeah.
probably May.
Yeah.
But she can send somebody, right?
She has stated in the past that she wants to be the one to come.
She's
Is it
out
all right after
till May?
Is that all right with you?
Yes.
Yeah, when she's available.
Yeah, she'd be happy to do that when she's back in the office.
Would it be a workshop? Would it be a meeting? What would it be?
The motion was a workshop to clarify the proviso.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear.
Do we have a second?
I'm so sorry.
I second.
All right, now discussion.
I don't think I'm sick. I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Do you want to trade place?
I don't know. I am so sorry.
I'm not opposed to a workshop, I just,
I can usually hear very well.
I think if, once we get into the discussion of the collection development policy and so on, I think it should be clear that we have followed the state librarian's recommendations, and so I'm not sure a workshop, it would be necessary. That would be my opinion, but I'm not opposed to it, but I think we will move past that by the time she returns.
Yeah, with her email and then an answer back with another email of our director here. I believe it was worded that it wasn't clear, and then she said, you know, she was clear, it was clear, the proviso that she could lay out for a meeting, and that's why I would like to be able to hear the clarity of it, of the proviso.
Okay. Well, once she gets back, we'll reach out to her. All those in favor of having the workshop done?
I was gonna say, there needs to be a motion.
Opposed? Okay, library board officer nominations.
Are the floor open?
Are we
for
doing it in
those?
order?
Floor is
or-
open. Pardon me?
Are you doing it in order, or?
Yes, we'll start with the chairperson.
I nominate Lori.
Okay, and you?
I would like to nominate Danny because he's been on the board for so many, many years. He understands Robert's rules of order so well. I think he would be an excellent chairperson.
So many, many years.
Okay. Danny, do you accept your nomination? I accept mine.
Accept.
Okay, vice chair, I nominate Hap.
I would like to nominate Lisa Pinkerton.
Okay, treasurer. I was going to nominate Elisa for treasurer.
I guess you can do that.
Would you accept the?
No, I can't do that.
Treasurer?
Yeah, because I'm on the I'm on the
Oh.
foundation treasurer and stuff. I don't wanna,
Oh, yeah, very good.
I don't wanna mix
So
that
you
stuff.
accept vice chair?
Yes, I accept
nominee?
vice chair.
Okay.
Then I nominate Susan as treasurer.
All right, does it matter that I am going off in December?
No, because Danny and I are, and secretary.
I nominate Nancy.
Okay, Nancy, do you accept secretary?
I will accept that.
Okay, we have our,
Could I raise a point?
yes?
Just really quickly, it's not clear to me why the election of officers is not synchronized with the terms of the board. Is there any reason why
It's
they
with the
are
fis-
asynchronous?
It's with the fiscal year.
Did you hear? It's with the fiscal year.
I understand that. I don't understand why it has, the election of officers has anything to do with the fiscal year. Should be, because we elect an officer, and then maybe in a few months.
Back in
that
January,
person
we'd
is
have
no
to do
longer
it
on
again.
the- yeah, the board.
Well, it just stays open.
Oh, you
Like
can't,
Well, like in the case of Karen, she went off in December, so that position hasn't been.
but if it's a chair, they're both up. If one of them does not, is chair and one of them's not coming back, that's chair, that's a problem, right?
Well, the vice chair then.
Is a
The vice would.
parliamentary point of order.
Yes.
We can just suspend that particular rule because it's just our rule, or we can just amend our bylaws if we'd like to.
Yeah, I would
I mean,
like
it's
to.
up to us. It doesn't make any sense to have it, have 6 months of no one representing the team. And why not do it when everybody gets assigned?
That's true.
Right, because, you first joined the board and, the new folks need, like a strong leadership guidance and whatnot. Make the changes in the first meeting of the new
In
session.
July? Okay.
So we can we can, just as a point of order on the parliamentary side, since most, other than you have, I think, wait a minute, I think it was unanimous, the change to the bylaws that we just made a minute ago. Since we all voted for that, parliamentary procedures would let us revisit that again at the later part of the meeting if we wanted to, and we could make motions to add that particular change directly to that thing that we just did and be done with that particular change to our bylaws this evening. And the only reason I would suggest that, or just say that that's the option, is if one of us had voted against it, then they wouldn't be able to participate in that by parliamentary rules, right, bringing it back up. So I'm making this point because that is an option for us this evening. If it seems dumb to all of us, then let's go ahead and take care of the dumb stuff quick.
I have one question to that. If we do agree unanimously to do that, does that mean it starts right now, or do we vote again? Because July is our fiscal year.
Well, I mean, we can vote tonight. If we
But
make-
does that mean the terms start in December?
We can make it start, it would be retroactive to this, or start this year, what do they call it when you paid part of the bill?
Prorate.
Prorate. It could start now and work all the way until December, and then when you folks get put on the board in December through the
Okay.
council process, we could go ahead and elect them again. So yeah, it would be a shorter term than normal, but somebody's gonna have a shorter term than normal if they don't come back.
I would be fine with that.
So I'll make the motion that we revisit the motion period, like I said, I've been a little under the weather this week. That's right. I mean, it's just backing up one shot, right?
So for clarity, the nominations tonight stand, and the people elected would serve until January, and then we would have an election based on the new rules.
No, we can make nominations tonight, and we can make that decision tonight if we change the rules to say that we can, because what you wrote in your thing said that they start immediately. So if we don't change that, and we just make it so that we can do it so that they run concurrent with the assignment years that we get, not the budget years, we can do that, or we can all agree that maybe it'd be better that we have a discussion about who's the board members, and we do it next time, but it'd still have the same term.
Maybe it would, so people can reflect, I'll write an amendment to the bylaws and bring it to the next meeting then, maybe.
I'll make the motion that we change it immediately.
Yeah, I think,
When they have to amend it, they can add that to it, right?
Yeah, because the next meeting is when we would be voting for everybody.
right, so we need to do it tonight.
Well, if we're gonna, if you're going to, so the nominations tonight would not stand?
Let's try this again. I make the motion, we'll start from this. I'll make a motion that we revisit line item B of the motion period, I'm sorry, whatever category this is.
6B.
Can we, 6B.
Yes, 6B, library board officer nominations.
So if that gets a second and it moves forward, then we can talk about how we orchestrate that motion.
Well, I'll second that so we can move forward.
Okay,
Right.
discussion.
So my proposal would be that we make a direct amendment to your language, wherever I put it.
The bylaws.
It's a struggle, man. All right. That we just make a line item on here that officer roles run concurrent with the annual year.
With
And
the term.
The term, that's right. And tonight, if this passes, then we can all decide whether or not we have the election tonight, right? For the discussion, or if we move it to the next term. I think since that election is not on here, we could just leave it the next term. That doesn't have to be the rule, if we're changing the rule for it to happen the very first meeting of the years. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is everybody okay with that?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right.
Discussion, any more discussion?
Question. So we will vote with the nominees tonight, or how, in other words, we submit them tonight. Then, May, we will vote, and then they'll just fill out until the rest of the year.
That's
And then the other will come,
Let's start in January.
yeah,
That's right.
retroactive, yeah, okay.
Or we can have the elections tonight.
We could, but we'll, two things, right? I've not only been on the board a short period of time. I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody here individually, to be
Okay.
honest, right? So it would give us the chance not to disturb the rhythm that we've already set up to have the elections next time, and give some of you guys to reach out and talk about the vision you have as an officer on the board. And then it gets away from this thing that we can all agree is kind of dumb, that we end up with 6 months, but nobody, if they don't come back in June or whenever it is. After June.
Yeah,
Can you take a question from the floor?
No.
No.
Okay, so,
It's been seconded, right?
yes.
And discussion.
And just, any more questions? All those favor?
So, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
just a point of clarification. For the sake of the amendment here, what do you have for your minutes that we're amending, that we're adding to it? Can you give me an idea?
You're amending the bylaws to have the term start in January.
Right, fair enough. Everybody all right with that? Is that simple enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor? Okay, now we're going to move on to the reconsideration appeals. I would just like to remind everyone that the review of materials policy the board adopted in August states that the section guiding principles that board members voting on an appeal must have read the entire book or examined an entire resource or recuse themselves from voting. The first book up is The Bluest Eye,
And I'd like to,
and Hap wants to start.
I'd like to make a speech, as you always say.
You're good at that.
Bear with me, Henry, this is usual for me.
That's a long, wow, okay.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
The petitioner chose this book for reconsideration as an example of the kind of library material she describes as pornographic, which she witnessed being addressed at county council. She claims the content throughout the book is not suitable for minors and cites numerous examples of sexually explicit material, cursing, including using the name of Jesus or Christ in a non-religious context, racial epithets, rape, prostitution, adultery, and so on. She claims that exposure of children to such material strips them of their innocence. She also claims that the content violates the South Carolina distribution of pornography law and the current proviso 27.1. The requested action is to restrict minors from having access to this book in the library and not to allow them to check it out. Indeed, there are numerous examples throughout the book of the kind of statements and behaviors to which the petitioner alludes. However, any objective reading would reveal that these behaviors are, in most cases, a result of the kind of conditions to which the main characters have been exposed throughout their lives. In fact, Morrison reveals accurately what life was like for many African American families, especially in the pre-civil rights era. Her main character has to deal with several demons, such as being black in a society that still had strong racial biases, and being not pretty in a society that glorifies beauty, especially Shirley Temple-type white beauty, including blue eyes, which she prays for as a panacea to her physical conditions. Further, she is burdened with a dysfunctional family, including an alcoholic father who rapes her. Absorbing all these circumstances, she collapses. The author, instead of simply dehumanizing racist whites, her parents, a deviant boarder, prostitutes, and others, provides us with their backstory so we may see how each name and their status in life. There is no attempt to normalize their behaviors, much less to use them to stimulate the prurient interest of the reader. As for restricting access of youth to this book in the library, the petitioner assumes that there is consensus that no parent would want their minor children to have access to it. This is undoubtedly patently false, and thus such a restriction would be a violation of patrons' rights. There is case law that explicitly states this. Further, the board has reasonably stated in the reconsideration policy that they would not move books to areas that do not exist. As for limiting a youth from checking this book out, with a new young library card, parents will have that authority, which in itself may be legally over-restrictive. The petitioner's reference to South Carolina law and the proviso take a limited view. South Carolina law, while it does at length define what constitutes pornographic material, and makes it illegal to disseminate it, it also embeds the federal standards of the Miller test as the guiding principles as how to apply the characterization of pornography. The basis of many complaints we have heard rests on the leg of the test that states community standards be applied in determining whether material depicts sexual conduct in an offensive way. However, the other two legs point to taking the work as a whole in order to determine if it appeals to prurient interest and lacks serious literary merit. As the test is normally applied, a work must meet all three legs to be considered obscene. As I mentioned above, there is virtually no way that the sex as presented in this book could be interpreted as being written to elicit the prurient interest of anyone, and equally so, one cannot claim that this Nobel laureate in literature would have achieved such a claim for producing a work of poor literary merit. Therefore, it is clear to me that the book is not obscene by South Carolina law. The proviso makes library funding contingent on not having obscene material or any material that appears to prurient interest of those under 17. This book, by a reasonable reading of the law, is not obscene, and as I mentioned, would not appeal to the prurient interest of anyone, including those under 17. Thus, it would not be in violation of the proviso. Finally, the petitioner feels that the book will strip their children of their innocence. Again, if she and others feel that way, then they can restrict their children's access to it. That is their prerogative, and the library will give them the tools to do so through the library young application card. Also, they can accompany their youth to the library. But I wonder, when should young people be exposed to a well-thought-out and well-presented representation of the caste systems set forth in this book and all their consequences? I would argue the process of true social awareness should start in this age group, and even then it may be too late. I would make a motion that a copy of this book be retained in the young adult section.
What's the
Wow,
young adult
Hap.
section?
That was long.
13 to 17. Yeah.
And then what's the category that goes up to 25? What's that one called?
New adult. And we don't have that
We don't
section.
have a new adult.
Okay, so we have a young adult section that's 13 to 17? Okay. And then I would also like to, from clarification, in the very introduction of this, you said that, that there's a rule that says we have to read the book to discuss it?
That's what we ask people to do, and
To
we
vote
hope
on it.
that they're honest.
So,
Yes.
who has not read the book? I've not read the book. How many of you have read the book?
We've read the book.
Everybody read the book?
Mhm.
Fair enough. So this would be an easy one for everybody here other than me to make the decision on, because I've not read the book. I have read other Toni Morrison books, though, and, I mean, The Color Purple's pretty incredible, right?
It's Alice Walker.
Who? Well, you're right.
You're in the same area.
Fair enough. My bad. All right. So it's been a long time since I read it, probably 25 years.
I get it confused too.
I've not read the book, so
So that means you can't vote.
I can't vote, but I can say this. Earlier, Ms. Davidson kind of lied to us. She said that no one has asked us to ban or take books out of the library, and that is clearly not the case. It's a good political statement if you're the kind of person that wants to stand up and make a soundbite and then walk out after you've got somebody to film it. The reality of it is, it's not actually the truth. Because I personally have been called, and I have a witness, a person that sat there for an hour and a half while I talked to the lady, that asked me to eliminate every single book in the library that mentioned sex in any way, even kissing. And so I asked ChatGPT, how many percentage of the books in the world, mention kissing? And it was an incredible percentage. That I don't remember the exact number now, so you can find that one for yourself. And then we had a discussion at our very last meeting, and folks kept talking about they just want to move the books. And then as we went through the discussion, which is represented in the minutes that we all approved, it came out that folks on the board, wanted to remove books that had any depiction of a naked human butt from anywhere in the library. And so I just want to point out, there is an absolute difference between banning books and taking them out of the library being your actual agenda, and then coming in front of the body as a whole and in public lying and saying that was never your intention, if that was indeed the case, you know, for that particular person, and having a discussion, right, about, you know, taking a real action on the book, right? So for my purposes, I don't want to participate in anything that's going to violate folks' constitutional rights. But there's a common sense element here that is true, that moving something from one room, I mean, the Starland Library is pretty tiny, and so is the one in Pickens. Moving one from one section to another across the room doesn't prevent anyone from having access to it. It will, but some of the other things in here will keep folks that are young from being able to access it. But moving it across the room, it's kind of a hard argument for me that that violates people's constitutional rights. Putting it in a different section so that it's kind of, you know, so that there's, it's put in there with other books, that seems like a reasonable action. And I wrote something too, just to make sure I wouldn't get off point on this. If indeed it's not about banning books, which I think that for some folks in the room, it is about banning books. And thankfully, they're in the minority of our, you know, fairly conservative community, right? They're in the minority. If it's only about moving the book across the room, you know, there's a limited risk associated with the constitutionality of that. For the ACLU to want to make us spend $1 million defending moving something across the room, I think that's going to be a fairly difficult bar when they have so many other things they can be working on right now. So I don't have a problem at all moving something across the room, because we can always revisit that over time. But I would move that we table C and D, A, till I have it. I would like it personally because I'd like to have a chance to read these books. But more importantly, because it's pretty clear that the age range issue is a problem. It's also fairly clear that in the library itself, there's going to be difficult to isolate things in a single room. You know, in a single room schoolhouse, everybody gets to get every lesson pretty much, right? So it's going to be difficult to accomplish it. And so we know the age ranges are a problem. In one of our very last meeting, we talked about staffing folks that could manage this system, and we talked about creating a public reading committee so that people across the community can have it's literally an Oprah's book club associated with what they do in Beaufort, where folks will read the book. Because, I mean, the reality is, as I've had these conversations with folks, most have not read the book. Many have come from some website where they found some of that lurid craziness, you know, that's been read for so long, right? Which most folks find unappealing, and it makes them uncomfortable. So I would make a motion that we table these until we address whether or not we're going to have the resources to manage this type of issue over the long term. Because the lady made a good point. It shouldn't take a year or more to have one of these types of things heard. We've talked about staffing. We've talked about actually adding to our budget the ability to hire folks that would manage and keep this within the constitutional rights and within the morals of our community. So we don't have it staffed right now. We're just doing this one at a time. So we can address this one symptom or two symptoms here tonight, or we can move it out and have the committee in place, have the resources in place, and those folks will have to come up with a plan on how you can actually create an isolating area inside of a one-room library. So to me, we agreed last time to do a bunch of things to make these decisions a better service to the community by inviting folks to participate in the discussion. So if we pause these, which it's already taken a long time, and we wait until, you know, till that's been worked out, because you're going to get your budget approval going into June, right? So you'll know if you'll have staffing, and then you'll have somebody that can coordinate the reading committee, and we can all get together and make those decisions. And that program that they have in Beaufort is sort of well acclaimed by lots of folks on both sides of the aisle. And I would say there, if you'll get up and read some of that lurid stuff in front of young folks in a public environment, like when I was on the council, folks came up and read that stuff with children in the room. It's kind of hard to take the moral high ground that you want to protect children and then get up in front of those children and then read the things that you're against. It's also kind of, you know, difficult for me to come up and make a unilateral decision without involving the public. So give a bunch of folks the opportunity to read the book and talk about it, and then make a suggestion to us whether or not they think it should be moved. That's what we agreed to do at the very last meeting.
Okay, I'm going to second this for discussion.
What?
Okay, I want to wait until we have the staffing and the people and the the group to be able to participate in this process. I know
Did you
this
have
one's
a motion
progressed.
on the table?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I'm making I'm making a motion to table this and the next one, so that supersedes his motion.
Are we still in discussion?
I
Like a
second it,
second.
so that now we will have discussion.
Okay.
One thing I want to say is if we table it, the first thing you said was because you wanted to have a chance to read it.
I said that was, personally, I would like the opportunity to read the book so I could
Because
participate.
also in the last meeting, it was brought to our attention that a member of the board had voted in the past and in reality had not read the books.
But is it one of our rules that it specifically says you have to read the book, or is it said?
Yes.
Okay.
Because how can you make it
Or
clear and
resources.
definite, or a resource? Because it says, or examine an entire resource or recuse themselves from voting. Because how can you make an educated decision if you haven't taken the whole book and read it and the whole content?
Resource means if it's not a book, if it's a DVD,
Yeah.
book or resource.
Resources.
Yeah.
I have no intention of voting on this thing tonight or not, because I think that that's a pretty sensible rule. I mean, we had some folks talking about a movie one time that they wanted banned and raised Cain about it forever, and it actually reinforced their points that they were making in the movie. It'd be nice to watch the movie to know, right? So I don't have any problem with that. What I'm saying is we agreed to add public input, like a broader public input. We agreed to staff these roles so they could come up with a systemic way to really effectively move them. We made all those agreements last time, so bumping this out, I mean, we can table it and it just disappears, or we can table it for a particular period.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we agreed that we would get additional public forum for
Yeah, we did.
public input.
Yeah, read minutes, we did.
No, we talked about a position where that person might promote that.
There was no might involved in that. You voted specifically to create a committee, and and we would also put in our budget that we would staff some folks to actually operationalize that particular effort. Clearly, you gotta have the people so that you can build that particular element.
But doesn't that depend on whether the budget is approved with
Yeah.
that addition?
That's
to it?
100% correct. It does. That's the glacially slow problem with government, right? I mean, light speed is 6 months.
Yeah, because this is already over a year that this book has been in play in this system.
You guys are gonna be the one voting on it tonight. My motion is that we wait until we have the system in place to make this a fair hearing. You guys have read it, I have not, so I have no idea what this book is about. I heard all the great things about it and all that, but we all agreed to involve more folks in the community. So here's my question. Is it worth 6 months to wait if the ACLU, like they threatened to do, is going to sue us? Because if they sue us and it costs $1 million to go all the way through the process, that's 4 miles of roads we could pave. So can we wait 6 months and have a whole system in place to architect the decisions like these in a way that meets more people's interests? Or do we want to take a risk tonight to be sued over a book?
Yeah.
Can I make a comment? From what I can see, what this lawsuits are about transgender issues. This is nothing about transgender issues. Even the lawsuit that was presented to us at the last meeting is about transgender issues. It's not about pornography in the libraries. It's a totally different issue. Nothing about this book is transgender, nothing.
The only thing that I would, because I haven't read the book, I don't know, but what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing are folks that have found a wedge opportunity at protecting people's right for infringement by the government on their access to information. And that's got nothing to do with trans or gay or black or anything, even though the majority of the issues at this point are being contested over those particular social issues.
Could I say something else?
No.
The state librarian has said that she could imagine no instance where we would be sued for moving a book in the library from one section to another.
So clarify
We
for
already
me.
have one of these books, maybe all of them, except this one, are in the adult sections of the library. So what's the big deal with moving this to join the other ones that are already in the adult section?
Just to be clear, I don't think, I'm not going to vote on it, so I don't want to say
I'm
I would move
asking
this one or not.
everybody.
Whether or not you move it or not, right? I hope that I said earlier, I don't have any problem with moving books. The issue I have is the folks that actually want us to move books as a step towards eventually being able to ban books, or people that have actually asked for books to be banned, but in public they talk about it being, oh, I just want to move them, right? That's sort of a lurid misrepresentation of their interests. So what I'm asking you is, if you guys vote to move the book, I think that's a great idea. If you don't, then that's your prerogative. But at the end of the day, we all voted to make this more open and public-centric, right? We voted to staff it. We voted to do some things so that these guys, because Stephanie asked a good question. It's a one-room. If I move it 8 feet over to that section, it's not borrowing people. So I don't know how to work through that, and I haven't read the book. So, but the ACLU seems to think that they're going to sue us for this. And I'm just telling you, a lawsuit's $1 million, and $1 million is 4 miles of roads. Is it worth it? We can't wait 6 months until we have it fully staffed and can do this effectively.
Alisa?
Can we compromise? And since these have been put on here and these people have been waiting for a very long time, we put a motion to vote on these 2 books and maybe put a halt until, I mean, how long is it gonna take the council to approve our money?
I think the budget's due for June, but here's the thing. You guys don't vote on this motion? I just think it'd be prudent to try to follow some of the things we all kind of agreed to do last time, which would be involve more people in this discussion. If you don't want to, I didn't read the book, so I'm not going to vote. I think that's a great idea. If it's a rule or if it's just sort of like a moral imperative, I agree with it, so I'm not going to vote on it. But I can vote on whether or not we table it so that we can have all the things in place that we all agreed to do.
I call your attention to the minutes that said the discussion of the reconsideration process for challenge books, including the possibility of creating a community review committee to assist in placement decisions. It was just one of the possibilities. So we did not vote in favor of having such a committee.
Well, I missed that in the minutes, and so after we're done with this, and I'll make a motion to revisit that so that I can get that edit to the minutes, because it was not a possibility at all. It was we voted to do it.
Well, that's not what I agreed to. And I agree with Alicia. We have a reconsideration process, and these books have been in the pipeline for a considerable amount of time.
So do you want to make a motion that supersedes his to go ahead and read?
You can just not vote for my motion.
Okay. All those in favor of Henry's motion to pause this?
Okay, but wait a minute. Henry's motion
Is to table this.
is to table it.
Right.
And
Until-
then have a committee eventually. Hap is saying, we didn't vote on that, we didn't choose that, so if we table, or if we don't go, like, if we erase his motion, that means we're back to the square one of just doing what we were originally doing? And that committee's not gonna be formed?
No, the committee doesn't have anything to,
It's, you for sure voted on this position, which ended up being one position. And then there was discussion of part of that position being able to manage and coordinate community involvement at some point. I think Henry just wants to clarify that that was discussed as, yes, absolutely being part of this position and not a suggestion within that position that we're adding to the budget. Does that make sense?
To answer your question, if we decide now, okay, we're not going, we vote against Henry's to table it, comes back, we carry right on. We make a vote on the books tonight.
that's what I was
And it's
going
not-
to say.
It's not hindering anything that's already in the
Okay.
works of all of the
Thank you
stuff.
for that clarity, Danny. Thank you.
It would involve a complete revision of the reconsideration process that we have and that we have worked through again. So this would have to be completely revised if there is going to be input as part of that reconsideration process.
But that's for once we get the position.
Yeah, you could.
And we can vote on it as a board at that moment,
So,
right?
so we would have to table the reconsideration.
I don't think so. I don't think you'd have to table it, because the one thing we can all, I think, agree on is that the state library director is expecting movement on
They
those
are.
policies.
She is.
So I don't think we need to table it tonight. I think you can vote on it, and then when we do get this position, you can always amend it.
You can amend it,
To
right.
include that position and what that position does.
So in that climate, it seems that we should probably proceed with the books that have come to us under the current reconsideration process.
So for the purposes of the folks that may be concerned that the book's going to be moved, which I don't have any issues with, in the event that it is moved, someone can just go and fill out the petition to have it moved back. right?
No, they would have to wait 2 years.
Yeah, so they can wait 2 years, but 2 years again is like, you know, like a flash in government time, right?
So, once again, a motion to, as Henry said, table this reconsideration. All those in favor?
Did you get a second on it?
Yeah, that's how we had discussion.
Okay.
You don't have to vote on it. I'll just
Oh, so
retract,
now-
I'll just retract my motion.
Okay, he's retracting his motion.
Thank you, Henry.
Okay, so
I got
now
to say
we're
everything I wanted to
gonna-
say, so.
I read this book, and it was a sad book. The main character, Picola, is a young black girl who believes she's ugly, and if she just had blue eyes, she would be beautiful. It's the same way girls go through this every day. This is something that teens relate to. If it's not weight, if it's not blue eyes, it's weight, it's your hairstyle. She has no loving relationship with her family. She doesn't even call her mother mother. She calls her Mrs. Breedlove, and her father is a drunk, and her brother comes and goes. This is another book on the reconsideration. One of the examples the person gave for reconsideration was it gave a poor description of a girl's first menstruation, which is, the book was written in a time period of 1939 with the main events taking place in 1941. Therefore, it's written in terminology used in that time period, and I'm assuming in the language that was used by black people in that time period, which was, I cannot believe that you would find someone's dialect offensive. That bothered me. That is not a reason to remove the book, it's just the way people talk about menstruation. The father rapes his 11-year-old daughter, which is sad and repulsive, and it matters, could be worse, she becomes pregnant from the rape. While this is a very serious book and may not be for everyone, once again, it should be up to the parents and how they know what their child is capable of understanding. This is definitely not a subject that should be put back on the taboo list. It was far too long that many people couldn't even talk about rape. Women were made to feel like they were the cause of the rape. And to put this back because you don't want to discuss it and hide it on a shelf is just, I think we're going back in time on women's rights, and not only women, men get raped also. So I believe it should stay in the young adult section.
My observation of the book, you guys have given the summary. I'm going to come on to the conclusion of this. I happen to agree that it is against the provisos, and I'm not saying anything about the content of the story of real life, the tragedy that took place in this book, okay, for this young lady. Terrible, terrible. But what I look at is this: what age is appropriate for this book to be read? Well, I go to the publisher once again, and Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston is intended for adult readers. That was the publisher. That's what. And it says, and explores the themes of racism, self-loathing, and the psychological impact of societal beauty standards on a black girl. So the audience targeted, okay? While the story is emotionally challenging, The Bluest Eye is generally considered a novel for mature readers due to its complex themes and potentially disturbing content. Why does the book, The Bluest Eye, belong in the adult section? Because of its adult content, and that's why the publisher, Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston intended it for adult readers. And so that's what I'm going on, and I think it belongs in the adult section.
From what I read, I thought it was 17 years old.
That book is so old. I think it was published in 1971. There's probably multiple publishers
There
that
it
have
is, and
multiple
I read
opinions.
some, and I think some went from, one was 14 to 19, the other one was 15 to 19, but they, they intended for it to be for mature readers, adult readers, different ones that I looked at. So, that's, it goes to the, I'm gonna vote for it to go to the adult section.
Could I just quickly just make like a logistical point that has to do with the old business that we're going to be discussing tonight in terms of the,
Does somebody have their phone on? Is that why
The-
it's interfering with
oh,
us?
yeah, it's close to the mic.
Somebody has their phone on. They need to move their phone away from the.
Henry just did.
Okay.
So, let me get my train of thought back. Oh, it has to do with that new youth library card application. So I know y'all received a letter from a younger girl that stated that just recently she had read this in high school. And that is why this book is in the young adult section as well as the adult section. A lot of times if it's something like the Scarlet Letter or something that schools have read over the years and are continuing to read as part of a high school curriculum, a copy of it is also going to be in YA. If we're thinking about later on when we talk about this new application that allows parents and guardians to restrict what their minor children can check out in certain age groups of our collections, you could say, well, I'm okay with them checking out things from children, juvenile, and young adult. If we move all these things into the adult, then they will not have access to this if they're reading it in school. I just wanted to point that out as we move through the policy.
That's correct.
Any other comments?
Well, the things that I read gave the ages 17, which with our library cards is in that teen section.
We don't have a teen section.
Well, not
Young
teen,
adult.
young adult, sorry. We've done so much, something like that. But, it was hard to read. It's a sad, sad story. But I can see, especially when we have adults, if they prefer to supervise their children, which I would highly recommend, every parent do that. As a parent, you have that responsibility to do that. Look at what your kids are reading. And if it's a required reading, look at what they're reading. Read the things on it. But for that reason, I can see where it could stay in the young adult with the age being 17. So that's where I am with it.
If it's in young adult though, how would that be monitored? How are you not gonna have a 13-year-old able to check that book out the way we stand right now?
Because when we discuss more about the library cards, which I hope that gets to be soon, and we get that done, that a parent, that 13-year-old won't check that out at that particular time without parent permission. And like I said, I wholeheartedly think, parents, if you're concerned, please be aware of what your children are doing. You know, that's just where I am with it.
I agree with that. Parents should be aware. But I think as a library, we should give them the sources and the tools they need to know what sections are what and what books there could be in there. This book, in my opinion, is not suitable for 13, 14, 15. But in the young adult section, that's where it's at. And a parent could give permission for young adult and for the library card, then that means they have access to it.
They do.
So,
And again,
then the
I
parent is
say,
trying to be
parent,
responsible, but the
look.
parent can't be responsible because they're trusting that the tools that they would like to have by the library are being abided, and this is right on the edge. And I think adult, in that way, if they do want to read it, they actually have permission from their parents, is my opinion. Sorry, Susan.
But the parent will get the notification also that their child has checked out this book. So then it goes right back to the parents' responsibility to be knowing what their children are reading.
So no matter what child checks out any card or any book, the parent gets notified? No matter what section?
Yes.
If they
If
opt
that's
in.
what, if they opt into that.
If they
It's
opt
on the
in,
application.
It's on the application that we're going to review when we're done with this.
But what I'm saying is if we put restriction that I don't want my kid in the young adult section, I put a restriction on that. Or I'm saying my child's 14, it's okay for them to be in the young adult section. I give them freedom to do that. I'm expecting that it's age-appropriate material in there, not this book. If
But
my
you're-
child came home with this book, I'd still be irate even though I gave unrestricted access to young adult. 'Cause
Right,
this is
and
an
at that-
adult.
And at that time, it would be up to you to take that book away from your child and say, I don't feel like you're at that age where you should read this yet. But that doesn't mean that every parent.
It's my opinion, Lori. I can really speak right now, right? I mean, why
Right,
are
that's
you
what
arguing with me?
But I'm giving you the other side of the story.
Okay, but you gave your opinion, I didn't argue with you.
I'm not arguing with
You asked a question. You asked a question.
You said, is that not right? And I'm
For
saying.
the young adult section.
And now you want an answer to your question?
Not really, I was just kind of stating a fact, I think. I mean, I know it's young adult. I know it's 13 to 17 right now. If I give my 14-year-old permission to go in the young adult section, they can come across this book if it stays in young adult. And I would be upset with you as a librarian, if I said, I don't want my child to be in the young adult section, I gave access to that, I was hoping that this would be age appropriate, and they come home with something like this, I would think that was age inappropriate to be in that section. So I would still have a problem with it, as a parent concerned.
I just want to say, until we get to the place that we want to be, if my child came and they picked that book up, it'd be my grandson now, I've got great-grandchildren. Go in and pick the book up and they're 13, okay? And come home and take it away. But how long have they had the book? Have they read half of it? Have they, maybe read the book or whatever before it, I know that. So we need a safety net, and until we get that safety net, we need to put these books in a safe place to prevent this from happening until we get it detailed. So that's where we're at now. Let's do something about the problem at hand right now, not saying, well, we'll have something set up and leave these things on the shelf.
I think we can educate the parents and help them to a certain degree to know what is where in our collection. But if you are concerned beyond what we can do in terms of putting the books where they go for that age of reader, you need to be with your child. You can't have the expectation that the library staff will parent your child. If you are that level of concerned, you need to be with them when they're checking the books out and when they're in the library.
Any of the board members have any input?
We could discuss it during the collection policy, please. Right now, can we just put a motion forward whether this book should be moved somewhere or not?
Is everyone else done discussing? Okay, so our motion on the table is to,
Retain a copy in the young adult section.
I second that motion. Any more discussion? All right. All those in favor? All those opposed? So now it stays where it is.
I recused.
Right.
Purpose, okay.
Okay. The next book on the list is Brave Face.
Shall I try this again?
Can you do a brief summary, Hap?
All right, Brave Face. The petitioner claims that this book will psychologically damage a child because it contains vulgarity and gives multiple examples extracted from sections of the book. The petitioner further claims that because in the author's disclaimer about content, he states that those are just the 100 million pieces that make up a life and I am not ashamed of them, that there is nothing wrong with his behavior or it's okay to be like him. The petitioner further states that if the petitioner had read this book in 6th grade, the petitioner would have questioned having a lack of experience with sex, drugs, alcohol, and pornography, or the use of self-harm to manage stress. The petitioner asserts that the library is pushing vulgarity and implies that doing so is a violation of South Carolina laws. She objects that the book was on display and questions whether that was in the young adult section. Her revised requested action accompanying her appeal is to move the book to the adult section. This book is patently written for a teen audience, based on both reading level and style and the fact that it is set almost entirely in his teen years. The story does contain all the components the petitioner alludes to and that are included in the author's disclaimer. However, as far as I can tell, the author is not promoting any behavior, but simply telling what happened to him. Various parts of his experience will resonate with many teens who struggle with coming out, or the very high percentage that consider suicide these days, which is especially high for LGBTQ youth. He explicitly states those as principal reasons for writing this book by saying, "I hope some small part of my story will reach someone who needs it." The book may make other teens more aware of how destructive struggling with homosexuality and depression can be for many of their peers, and how such struggles can lead to some bad choices, including self-destructive behavior or suicide ideation and attempt. Although the author has not completely mastered depression, he can control it. Further, he has realized that the stereotypical view of homosexuals is not accurate and does not have to apply to him. In short, to teens who are struggling with these issues, he gives a message of hope. Things will get better. I might add that if he were not honest about his experiences, what impact would his story have, and what teen would take him seriously? Teens can detect disingenuity as well as, or even better than most age groups. My comments about legal issues this petitioner makes related to South Carolina law are similar to those I made about the bluest eye. It is hard to imagine anyone's prurient interest being stimulated by the mostly tortuous sex scenes in this book. And second, to claim this book has no literary value is just not consistent with the overall message of the book taken as a whole. Further, to state that the librarians are pushing pornography by displaying this book is insulting to their integrity and potentially dangerous for them. As I note, I believe the book was displayed in an adult area, not in the young adult area. For parents who are worried about psychological damage from such a book, his warning at the beginning of the book and before the chapter on suicide, not to mention the extended title, How I Survived Growing Up, Coming Out in Depression, should be enough to make an individual assessment in this regard. In any case, because of the book's notoriety, its content should not come as a surprise, so it would be easy enough to single out for restriction on an individual basis. As further safeguards, parents will have control over checkout access to the new youth application card, or they can accompany their kids to the library. I move this book remain in the young adult section of the library.
Can I say something?
We need a second. I'll second it for discussion.
What did he motion?
He moved to leave it in the young adult section.
Okay, so now can I say something?
Yes.
Okay, I have no problem with this young man being gay, being homosexual. What I have a problem with, and I know it's difficult coming out, I know young men struggle with that, I can sympathize, I see value in a lot of those parts of this book, but when he's describing his promiscuity, and he's worried about AIDS in the beginning of the book, and then there's no mention of any protection, that is a bad role model for young homosexual men. I'm sorry, I cannot agree with that. It needs to be in the adult section. This book finishes up with him being an adult and a college student. The promiscuity continues all the way through. That is no model, no example for a young man at all. And like I said, I have no problem with the coming out part of this story. I know that's hard. A young man might need to read that, but the promiscuity and the unprotected sex has no place in a book for young adults or teenagers.
Well, I too read this book, and I really didn't focus so much on the fact that the character was gay as that he committed self-harm to himself by cutting, and that he suffered from depression. And I thought that if his parents would have been more aware, they may have been able to see the signs that he was suffering from depression and that he was cutting himself, or his friends would have been more aware. The one paragraph that I really liked is he said, "I'd begun to realize that my fear of being gay and my depression were two separate issues. I wasn't depressed because I was gay, I was depressed and I was gay. Being gay doesn't make a person depressed any more than being depressed makes a person gay." And I really didn't find anything very graphic in this book. And all this young man wanted was a loving relationship. He didn't want to be flamboyant. He just wanted a normal relationship with another human being, and that was his ex. So I'm recommending that. I agree with Hap. Do we have any more discussion?
Yeah, once again, my conclusion to it with, sometimes we count on these books to be the psychologists, therapists, whatever to our kids, and it could be. They could get help. I've heard those saying, "I've got help from that to help me sort things out in my life." But on the other hand, also, it can go the other way with all of this, the habits he developed, the smoking, and then I believe it, let me see what it said here. I was looking over a little bit of this, that as he begins to focus only on sex, okay, and would live a short life probably because of AIDS. See, these are things that these kids could. I can see it working in reverse as well. So, and it being not vulgar. It was read earlier, and I'm not going to read it, but on page 305, what he unbuttoned his shorts and it went on. So these are things I think it ought to be in the adult section, my opinion.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion on the table to leave it in the young adults section. All those in favor? All those opposed? It stays in the young adults section. Okay, next thing on the list is to appoint a library directory evaluation committee. It is under my purview as chairperson to choose the members of this evaluation committee, so I am going to appoint.
For what? What's the point? What are we doing? I mean, evaluate the director? I mean,
Right,
what is
appoint,
this?
as it says on the agenda, appoint library director evaluation committee,
Can anybody be on that, or only the people you appoint?
She appoints.
the people that I appoint. It's a committee, and I am in charge of.
And what are they going to do?
They will come up with an evaluation, and they will evaluate her.
And then we get the information from them?
Correct.
And so the people who are not on this committee don't get to evaluate?
Correct.
If you have things to add, you can add it when they present.
Make a substitute motion that we do the evaluation of the administrator as a body of the whole and skip over that particular element of the process so that we can all participate. And we'll have to have a short work section to figure out how we want to do that evaluation, but there are some really good processes out there for all of us. That could be some constructive feedback from each one of us from a professional development perspective.
And it will have to be held in an executive session.
Well, that piece of it does, yes.
Yes.
And then also how we would structure it and whatnot, that
second.
Okay. And for the discussion purposes, she doesn't just work for, a few of us. I mean, she specifically works for this board, right? So we should all participate in it. I have had the opportunity to do the county chairman, the county administrator and the school superintendent. And there are some very simple processes to be able to get individual feedback from folks. And we can do that in a couple different, very constructive ways. And then make it more of a professional driven thing, or just sort of an opinion of we love it or we don't love it kind of thing.
I would suggest that because it's your purview to pick the committee, that you would have to agree to that.
I don't think that she clearly doesn't have to, because I just made a motion to substitute.
And we had a second.
The board's going to decide.
Pardon
me?
The board will decide.
Yeah, from a parliamentary perspective, we can, this is basically suspending the particular rule that she's referencing and superseding that with all of us participating. And if we want to make that in perpetuity, let it go back and change the bylaws. So the next time around, somebody doesn't make this motion, then it's the same way.
So you're effectively proposing to change the bylaws.
No, I'm effectively, for this particular term, yes, and then maybe we revisit it later.
But that would,
You suspend, we're not.
you're suspending this rule of the bylaws at this point.
Yeah, for this particular purpose, as I explained to some. All right, so, that look on her face right there, I see that a lot with my wife.
Well, it's not in the bylaws.
He's.
Is this in this?
It's
So
in the
this is-
law that she can appoint committees.
Yeah, but he's saying that we do an evaluation for the whole. That's not written, evaluation for the director's not even in our bylaws.
Correct.
Correct, but
She's appointing a committee. Because you first have to you have to know what the process is, what the form is, how it's all gonna work. You don't have one in place.
So
So,
I'm saying the committee is all of us.
all of us, thank you.
So we can have a committee of the whole meeting and go through it on a work spec.
I second that, sir.
well, it's been seconded.
Oh, okay.
We're in discussion.
Sorry, I'm done discussing it, sir.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, library budget.
So if y'all look at, I've given you, two budgets. The first option compares, this budget we're in right now, FY 25, with option one that does not include, the proposed position, that I'm calling collection development community liaison. So option one, does not have that position. Option two is comparing a budget that does have that position. Before we talk about, and I've given y'all an example draft position description of that, I want to just go through the budget really quickly. You'll see additional information at the bottom. If we do keep our millage, the value of the mill will be $828,153 without the boat tax legislation, and $823,920 if the boat tax legislation is passed. And using that, I gave some example millage rates of what that would be and what that value would be. Our maintenance of effort of what we spent in FY 24 was $3,380,807.18. We cannot go below that or we will lose our state aid. As far as staffing, which is the largest percentage of our budget, there will be, the proposal from county is a one-step increase, which is 1%, and then a 3% cost of living increase, and that has been calculated into both of these budgets, the one with that position and the one without. Both of these budgets do contain those two part-time positions that we've been asking for several years, and then one reassessment of a position that would give a position an increase of $3,000. So that is included in there. I did highlight some things on your first page, and I was gonna go through, these are things I've looked at previous budgets and then what the trend is of our current budget, and I've been able to cut some things, but also some things have gone up. So if you see the yellow color, travel expense
we're in a trend of using more of that. A lot of that is taken up by, our youth services staff when they travel around the county to daycares and schools and things like that, so that has gone up. Our credit card fees have gone up, our copier contract has gone up, our fire extinguisher contract has gone up. The cleaning and sanitation, we've been behind for the past 2 years, so I needed to add to that to keep up. Our permit fees have gone up, and then I'd like to add, some money to our furniture and equipment budget for the replacement of furniture. We're gonna try to replace things little by little. I know we need a lot of furniture replaced at this library. We've cleaned it as many times as we can clean it. A lot of it is from when this library was first opened. So I wanna sort of go through systematically the whole system and start replacing some of this furniture. So that is what that budget item increase is for.
I'd like to just comment that the salaries, the major increase in the budget is in the salaries category, and that's mandated by the county council.
It's in their proposal.
Yeah, so,
So,
and the
so
other.
that we would match theirs.
And the other, the library's operations expenses, it's to increase it by $13,000 or $14,000. That's not even inflation. So I think this is a very modest proposal.
I have a question.
One of the things that.
Nancy.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, I'll go after you.
No, it's all right. You want to come up.
I'm wondering how the electricity went down dollars, $8,000, and the cleaning and sanitation went up $6,000. What?
The cleaning and sanitation is just cost of materials, and that was trending up a couple of years, but we actually needed to move it this time to be accurate. I've looked at, I was hesitant to take away money from the electricity and heating fuel the past few years, but we always have extra money there. So I felt, I didn't cut it to the bone, but I felt that conservatively, we could take some money from that and still be okay.
So you're balancing is what you're saying, kind of,
Yeah.
right? What about the postage going down by half?
Postage, so in the past, we had sent out postcards every summer, especially during COVID, that advertised our summer reading, and it was also the way to participate in summer reading, and we sent those out to every residential address in the county. So we've stopped doing that because we looked at our response rate and just weren't getting enough to justify the cost, so we cut that back. But we still need to leave a little bit in there because we do have to purchase postage and things for the passports.
One of the things that Stephanie and I talked about in my role as treasurer, whatever that is to go to the chairman of the county council and in advance and discuss this budget so that we don't run into some of the controversies, the unnecessary controversies we had the last time we proposed a budget, to make it clear, what we're doing and that, see if there's any concerns.
And what
on
the
his part
expectations are.
beforehand.
And to
Yeah,
ask him
see
what
what
he
his
wants.
expectations are. And at that point, we can, look at both of the budgets. One with the library position. What are we calling that person?
Librarian.
I came up with a
I
job
need to
description.
make it,
Henry,
I need to
came up with
shorten
a job
it somehow.
description for this person.
The Collection Development Community Liaison.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a public liaison, that's what, it was something like that, yeah, for that position. And we can also provide, at that time, we can provide a tentative job description for that person, which we have.
I think what we sort of needed guidance on from the get-go before we start having the hopefully additional meetings before the actual budget meetings is, do you want us to send both of these or one? And if so, if one, which one? Just as a consensus from the board.
Well,
Which one would you?
We had said at the last meeting that we were gonna send both, right?
I have a suggestion, and we had this conversation. I'm sorry, did I
No,
interrupt you? I am
You
so
did,
rude,
but I
I
am not gonna
apologize.
jump down your throat.
Well, I am sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
To make it clear and concise, I would suggest, I'm not a council member, but I would suggest just the one proposal with the job on there, and then if they have a question of why a certain thing is higher, it's because of that job position. It's very clear, concise, and you don't get confused on where you're taking, things aren't moving around and stuff, so that you can answer the questions of the council very clear and concise, my opinion. Because it's the same, other than that extra job position, correct?
Well, as a member of an ex-member of the council, what does Henry think about that?
That's what I was wondering.
Other than a member of the council here, I've been responsible for making, hundreds of $1 million budgets for most of my career. And I've never had somebody come in with two different budgets and you can just pick, right? Because, I'm just gonna tell you, we're not gonna be, I would say the odds are really good that we're not gonna be on the millage and that you're not gonna get any more money if you don't ask for it and have a good defense for it. In this particular case, you're talking about adding one resource, because the one lady had a great point. It shouldn't take 9 months to, figure out this whole process of getting things done. Somebody can expedite this thing. Other than if it's an issue of content and you can send it off to a committee that's going to all read and vote and make suggestions. And we have bodies that do something like that all across our county government. It's a pretty straightforward decision. You gotta have, if they want something done that's gonna add, you already have fully employed people, then you've got to have the scope of work to be able to support it. So all of these folks out here that have been asking for this to be quicker, more efficient, better managed, have a resource they can reach out to if they have, inputs or whatnot. That's what we're talking about. Just put one forward. And the other piece of it is, the revenue piece of it should always be a part of the discussion here. So where's the money gonna come from? And because I recall last year that the biggest issue was, where the whole meeting went down, was where the revenue element of it wasn't well defined. And the other part of it is you do have the authority to move between categories as you're working through the year. And things kind of fell apart on certain choices about books that you bought and whether or not that category should be. Well, the reality for our purposes is, if she proposes a category and she doesn't spend all of it and she ends up tapping that to move somewhere else, that's her prerogative, as, from a priority of operating, right? It's got nothing to do with the county council, so, don't, in the event that happens, my suggestion was just let them grandstand for a little bit and then move on.
So, I agree, we should do the budget with the librarian in there.
Do we have a motion?
And all they can do is say no.
So
In which case,
well,
they'll have to defend that.
No, what they can say is, it can go down a rat hole of talking point and, and just, having gone through the budget process, government and outside the government, eventually you'll find a point where the person that's represented doesn't know every single detail about one line item on an 800, line item thing, right? And so don't separate the politics from the actual getting it approved.
Yeah.
If the public is asking for these folks to be more efficient in hearing these things, and you're getting a bunch of them, right? Then you're getting a bunch of these complaints about particular books and where they're at and whatnot, right? So if the public thinks that process is glacially slow, then the answer is you get somebody to do it for a living, and that will go out there in the community and talk about all the things that we do. Because it's been pretty clear, the lady that just left has made a really good effort towards making it appear to lots of folks in our community that these guys are pornographers and they're trying to purvey pornography and they're trying to cripple the minds of children, et cetera. Well, the library needs to go out and represent the things that we are doing, like the protections, like the fact that if a parent opts in, then they get and then even more important than just that you can't, your child shouldn't be in the library by themselves. Like you were talking about your 14-year-old. I think that her 14-year-old has to be with her, right? 13, okay, so 13 and below.
But it would be the parent's decision.
Parent's decision if that's the case, right? But you guys don't want to be babysitting children. So all of that, somebody in the public, somebody needs to be going into the public and representing that. Because, that's public education about what's going on in the library. It's very easy to make political points by demonizing folks like teachers or librarians or whatnot. But at the end of the day, somebody has to go out there and kind of counter that. That's what you're talking about. I think it's straightforward.
Okay, so I make a motion that we send the budget with the librarian, the full-time librarian, and the two that we've been asking for years.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Collection development policy.
And we have copies of that if y'all need, if anybody needs a collection development policy to look at. y'all-
And everybody was sent this as
Yes.
well.
What about the one that I sent?
We,
They interstack.
Stephanie, do you want to go ahead and explain why we have one? Because we worked with the state librarian on this.
I can explain, or y'all can explain. So basically, I just took, we had I'd had multiple conversations with her, and then we had a conversation with other library board members, and the consensus was, send me what you have, because she was like, there's no movement on this, and my thought was that we have been trying to move forward, then we were given this guidance, and it kind of threw it into chaos, you know, defining certain sections and things. So I sent her what we had, our reconsideration policy that we had already approved, to see if we could improve that. I sent her the collection development policy that y'all had all seen, but not yet voted on. And then the application policy that, again, y'all had seen, but we had not voted on. I sent her all three of those things, and she sent them back with those corrections. And I accepted every correction that she made, unless she was asking a question and needed clarification. And I think there were 2 instances of that where I left them in there, because it was things like code of conduct things in writing your reconsideration, if it was like turning into what it was turning into for me, just insults and harassments and things in the form of a reconsideration request, that we were not gonna move forward with that request, or they would need to rewrite it and state what their problem was with the material, and not certain claims and accusations, and we have agendas and all that, you know, let us look at the material and judge it. So there was that, and I can't remember.
The thing about mature, what's the other thing?
Oh, yeah, I think she put in wording about, mature in the, young adult area, and I took that out because, as, Danny stated before, mature, it can be a vague word. Like, yes, you can have things that you think are too mature for a 17-year-old, but also there are things that are maybe too mature for a 12-year-old. That needs to be decided by a parent. I don't think something that vague should be decided within a policy necessarily, but I kept everything but that word.
And she asked for clarifications, and we've, part of the document change was some of those clarifications. I mean, the key is the young adult collection, because statements, because those are the ones, placement of books in those, in that section is the most contentious. And so the way it's written now is that the publisher's reading recommendations, which include the age range for young adults, as it states, it says it will factor, the language we came up with will factor in the placement of books in this collection. However, the placement of the materials in the young adult collection will be decided by the professional library staff, and then also it can be challenged through the reconsideration process. The key here is that those recommendations are just that, and the librarians may decide that if it says 13 to 18 or 13 and above, the professional librarians may move it to adult, or they may go with the inclusive age range and leave it in young adult. It can go either way. So that's gives the latitude and the authority, and the responsibility to the librarians to decide. But then there's the fallback position that it can come up for reconsideration if the public doesn't like where the book is placed, then they have a reconsideration policy. But in my interactions with the state librarian, I felt that, that if we followed through with her edits and her comments about, for clarification, that we would be satisfying the spirit of her recommendations. So
And that's what I thought too. I know you had added some things from the
Yeah.
proviso and added some things from other policies.
I
think.
compromised. I did a
Well,
compromise.
Well, you had added, but what I did was I took what her suggestions were.
I
That
got
was
you,
what I
but
took.
isn't it the library boards?
I'm just telling you why, like you asked specifically about your suggestions, and I looked at
So-
I wanted to tell you that I looked at your suggestions, but because she did not include that, I didn't include it, because I was going off of what the changes that she wanted to make.
But I
and
didn't send
accepted.
her mine.
You sent it to me.
Yes, so how could she make changes on the one that I sent you if I never sent it to
No,
her?
I'm saying that the changes that she suggested were the changes that I accepted in the document.
Okay, well, these
I
are
feel
the
like if-
changes I'm suggesting, and I wanted to have the whole library board
Point of
look at
order.
it. It was a
Point
compromise.
of order. Yeah, just clarify for me, right, because I'm not sure all the process is here. You can't direct her, right? Individual board members can't direct her, right?
Correct.
But as a body of the whole, if you want things edited, you can just start making suggestions immediately. So mandating or requiring, she doesn't really have to explain why, because if all 7 of us had given her things, she'd have to find a balance there, right? She's gonna pick in some way, but if you wanna make an edit, you can just start making edits right now. Am I wrong in that? Is the process here different than every other
No,
parliamentary
that's
governing
right,
board?
but I would say that the state librarian did say, you need to get moving, because she's getting reports that we're not acting on anything, we're not doing anything. And you yourself had said, we're just going in circles. Well, this is
But that's not far enough.
But the state librarian says it is, and that's what you all have been going on.
But
is
it's
what the-
our policy as a library board to
Right.
change the policy for
But you want it
Pickens
to be
County.
Greenville's. You want it to be Greenville's
No, it
policy,
is not
Pickens
Greenville's.
County.
It is not Greenville's.
I would put a motion on the table that we approve this because it meets what the state librarian says. She agreed to this.
So from now on, any input from the library board is not acceptable?
It
Other
is
than half.
acceptable.
Other than
But
half.
we have gone over this and we've tabled it numerous times and it's time to
So
make
no
a decision.
compromise is gonna be involved here.
This is the compromise of the state librarian, which is, everybody's been saying that we're not going with the state librarian, and now we did, and now we're still not happy, so I don't think that's a compromise on your part.
I think
By
too-
putting criteria on there so the reconsiderations would be less, that is not a compromise for the county of Pickens?
What do you mean reconsideration?
Because there is criteria on here under the children's section that and the guidelines for minors is also included in here, which is for the state of South Carolina. And it's more specific on what materials would be allowed or moved to adult. So that way the reconsiderations would eliminate a lot of them if we did age appropriate in these sections.
I think that, and personally, my opinion is yours was too restrictive.
So can I say something?
Yes.
So are we just kind of ignoring the proviso and the chance that we might lose state funding? Is that what we're doing? Because the proviso says very clearly that there's not supposed to be anything of prurient interest of children in the library. And the paper that the lady gave us today of the threesome and whatever else was going on is clearly pornography.
Do you know what book that was from?
No.
Neither do I. She didn't say, did she? We don't know if it was in the adult section or in the.
Well, she was 12 if she checked the book out from the adult section.
But she didn't know what the book title was, so, and that's off topic. She couldn't tell us what the book title was. The mother didn't know. And neither did the lady. So to me, if you don't know what you're up there talking about, it's moot.
I'd like to make a motion to make an edit to the 1, 2, 3, fourth line down on the bullets for the collection development policy. It says library material will not be excluded because of race, nationality, sex, sexual preference, identity. I'd like to change that to excluded or included solely. So the word would be or included solely. So excluded or included solely because of these issues. That to me kind of clarifies some of the issues associated with people having, whatever it is, trying to pollute the mind of the children or whatnot. If your only reason you're putting it in the library is not because it meets the first one up there that says a well-rounded collection, the second one says curated collection represents diverse inputs. If you're not already meeting those requirements, in this particular case, if you're only adding it because it's a political group or a social group or a religious view, then I'd say that that's probably not, in the best interest of creating a blah, blah, blah. So excluded or included, because I think you protect people by saying that. We're not putting it in here just because when people tell us to, or whatever, it meets all these other criteria. So that's a motion. Can we make that one edit, those 3 words or 2 words?
I second that motion.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? I don't have to add that. All those opposed?
I was just wanting for clarification here, Henry, that was
It's in the fourth,
The fourth bullet down, it says library material will not be excluded, and I'd like to add the word or included solely, or included solely. And I don't know if there should be a comma in there or not. You guys have to figure that one out.
Okay.
All right.
Probably not necessary.
And I think along those same lines, that proviso, and the problem I have with it, it is vague. The state library has said it is vague. To my understanding, we do not have any items of prurient interest, which would be things that, and you have to look at the definition of prurient, but things that are solely created to turn minors on in this collection. And if we do, I very much want somebody to bring it to my attention through a reconsideration process. But I still think that if we have things that are solely to turn minors on, that is the main intent, or the sole intent of that book. I don't think we have that, and if we do, we have a reconsideration process so they can bring that to me. And we have moved things, so it's.
And likewise, by state law, we have no pornography in the library, according to and again, if the reconsideration request reveals such a thing, where it fails the Miller test completely, or passes it, depending on your point of view, then I want to know about it, because we don't want that stuff in the library. There's no question about it.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table and a second to accept the collection development policy with Henry's revision. Now, can I have a vote for all those in favor?
Point of order, we were done with all the discussion? I apologize, I was just looking here at.
You have more discussion?
Yeah, I will, first,
Okay,
you
go ahead.
clearly have some edits, right? Ms. Pinkerton?
Oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Why the hell not?
Because.
I just edited a sentence on the first end of it, right, and I specifically did it because I thought it was.
And the reason I say that is because the criteria that I said, they both said no, that's not suitable. But can I edit
That
that?
was my opinion.
Part of order, Mr. Chairman, right, just from a parliamentary perspective, I can't tell you can't do a motion. We can't, we can run out of time, right? But if we come and you see things that need to be edited right here in front of you, you can't demand that she write what you want her to write, right? And you can't tell the chairman what she puts on the agenda and includes, right? But what you can do is, make a sweeping body of editorial changes if you'd like to. That's the whole way this thing works. If we did, I don't know if you guys did this.
Okay, that has never been done before.
Did you, well, it's just, there's the parliamentary book's about this big. You guys went through a committee? Y'all been through multiple phases? Y'all have gotten it to this point? Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But all the way up until the last reading that you have, folks can make edit requests and edit changes. That's the power you guys have as, position on the board. It's a parliamentary thing, is to make it fair for all of us. So yeah, she took a lesson from everybody here, and she included all the things that she thinks is in there. If you want something more, it's your right to suggest it. The body of the whole can say, hey, we don't like that idea.
Okay.
I mean, I made you guys vote 3 times earlier about giving all these folks extra time, right? And just so you know, I would have done that for the rest of the night until she told me I couldn't. Right, so you can make those edit changes.
Could I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
Her edits are pretty massive.
Yeah.
And that's why 2 weeks ago, before this meeting, she presented her copy, what am I trying to say?
Collection policy?
Yeah, her collection policy, that's a combination of everything. So everybody could read it and be ready to vote on it tonight. She also has paper copies.
Yeah, but you know, she made a suggestion that wasn't part of the overall, I'm just gonna still go back to the parliamentary thing here, right? She made a suggestion that wasn't part of the meetings that you had and the committee elements that you did, or the direction that you gave the lady that has to write the stuff, right? So I'm not saying you came late to the game, but you discovered something you thought was important, and you put it in front of us, and you did that outside the purview of everybody here, right? So what you do now, if you don't want to go like down a sentence or two and see if you can get some things added to it in this body, you can say, hey, let's table this thing and revisit it. Or, I mean, this is the other piece of it. If you don't get your way tonight, right, help us be successful with what you do get, and then just ask for it to be put back on there to add some more to it. We can keep working this thing until the end of time if we need to.
Okay.
You don't have to just say, well, tonight I didn't get my way and I give up. You can talk to each one of us individually, you can talk to Lori, we can go back through that process. I mean, the whole idea here is that these documents are going to evolve over time, and you have the right to continue to bring it up if you think it's an issue. You don't just lose forever tonight, right? You can always get this back on the docket in the future. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Or you can take your document, and if you want to, right, if it's just for the purposes, I mean, I'm just saying for the purposes of argument, you could present your document to the rest of us, make us all pull it out, and say, I'd like to make a substitution so that gets included, right? You can do that. Whether or not it passes and becomes a motion we all vote on, comes down to the parliamentary process. So you're never unempowered by the way this things work, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so.
The revisions you had recommended would require essentially a new document. So they would be very significant revisions to this. They're not just single comments like yours. And so the document we'd almost end up with 2 different documents that we would need to be looking at, because the philosophy of her revisions and the magnitude of the revisions would require almost 2 separate documents for us to
That's
look at.
that's not true. I adapted yours with it. I just added some stuff in between. Your whole philosophy is all what you already have on yours.
I'm sorry?
The philosophy on mine is the same as your philosophy on yours.
No, I meant in terms of,
I just added criteria to the children's section and to the teen
Right.
section.
but
I changed
they
it.
were significant, so that we would have to, I think what we'd have to do is look at the 2 documents side by side.
So am I allowed to do that or not?
Because
You can suggest that we take it back to, I
Thank
apologize, we're cross-talking a little
Thank
bit here, but here's my opinion, right, just from the parliamentary. You have the right, I mean, just because we're all participating here, until we leave, to ask that we table it for more consideration, and then we can do it in 2 months, right? And you can ask that we have a committee meeting next month. So if you wanted to table this till we revisit it, don't just table it and revisit it and wait for it. You ask that we table it and revisit it at a meeting next month for the purposes of combining the edits or deciding on the edits in a public forum. And I mean, that's your right to do, right? So yeah, it would, or here's the other piece of it. You cannot ask for perfection to stand in the way of progress. If this includes a number of the things that you guys directed her to do, so she's taken that incremental step, then we can pass it, and then we can take the next incremental step of revisiting it. I mean, I'll just say this, I'm probably not gonna vote against any public dialogue that helps folks, improve processes.
Okay.
So you probably have your 4 votes to keep having this
And
discussion.
usually, I guess the reason I'm hesitating is usually we don't do that. So thank you for advising that we can do that.
You gotta read that whole 700-page books on parliamentary procedures, a whole bunch of stuff in there you can do.
No.
So
You did, so I will take your advice.
I would suggest, because we're under this pall of the state librarian accusing us of not moving forward, and I would suggest that we attempt to approve the revised collection development policy as written and edited with the understanding that it can be changed. It can be changed at any time. But I would like to move forward with something at this point.
I think, and just so that y'all are aware, the point that she was making is y'all really need to move forward. This looks like you're not doing anything in terms of the legislators and things like that. Let me help you. She made all of these edits and I accepted those edits. So that's
where we came up with this.
That's what this is.
And she had received calls stating that we weren't doing anything.
Because I don't understand, right, exactly her full role, I've not met her before. Does she approve or manage or control any of our budgets? Does she pay for any of our people?
No.
Are they supplementing or complementing us in any way other than providing resources for her? And do you answer to her from a licensing and certification perspective?
To the state library, yes.
To this lady you keep talking about, the library director? So she's sort of given us her opinions from a.
She put out this guidance,
Yeah.
which you can follow or not follow. There's been a lot of conversation that has come up that we're not following it and that we're just ignoring it and that there's been no movement on it. And so we basically had conversations with her and she requested that we give her what we had, and then she made edits to it so that it would more so comply with her guidance. Whether y'all follow her guidance or not, it's not required. It is not required to follow her guidance to get state aid at all. She's just put out guidance to help libraries navigate the proviso.
So my opinion is, generally speaking, people don't like it when things drag out forever. But they also don't like it when you pass things that are, like bad policy, particularly if you're not willing to go back and revisit it. So if you're the kind of organization that moves on and you're stuck with it forever, right? So if, in the current age that we're living in, some bureaucrat from Columbia telling me I gotta do something here that I don't wanna do, I don't even wanna hear it. But at the end of the day, right, so you've not lost any ability to achieve what you tried to achieve by sending us that email, except for, you're poorly timed. So if what do we gain by doing something tonight? Because he's got a good point. That's my real question. We get off in the military, we call it get off the X, right? You're not the target anymore. So if we're gonna make some incremental progress with the understanding that we're gonna continue to discuss this.
Yeah, it can.
And I will say, we used to do, the contentious thing used to be our meeting room policy back in the day, and we would look at it every single meeting almost. So this is a continuous process. We would look at it.
Can I please state my fear a little bit? Because I understand what you're saying, that we can amend it later on, but as it's been, and nothing again, the agenda, I have no idea what's on the agenda, which is fine, but I just don't want this to get lapsed and we don't amend it because it's never put on by the chairman again. You know what I mean? Like, that's my fear.
You can get this put back on the agenda. You can get it put back on the agenda by doing the new business discussion. You can put that up every meeting. So if you can't just talk to her and have her put it on there, you can propose it at every meeting in the new meeting there. So we'd have to all vote on whether or not we do it or not.
Do we have a motion or anything on the table?
Yes.
We do.
We have a motion to approve the collection development policy with Henry's.
Well, we've not voted on making the change, Henry.
Right.
Okay. I would like to suggest this, that we move on with this policy. Attached to that is, we meet next month as a group of a committee to work on whatever else needs to be done to it. We keep moving with it. In other words, we're going to make changes and get it to where the whole board can say, okay, we can do that.
Could I suggest that we get, so we don't go through this 100 times, get feedback from the state librarian on the documents, this document and the other two, before we reassemble and start changing it again? I would like to get that feedback. If this is consistent with her.
This is the problem I have. You're gonna talk us right out of amending it. Like, that's what you're doing right now.
I'm talking you out of what?
Amending it, like you're saying, let's get
No.
the feedback. At the end of the day, it is our job as a library board
Yes.
to make policy for the Pickens County Library. It's the board's job.
But I do understand what Hab's saying, that let's see what she thinks and take that, if she wants to, if she edited it, again, I cannot say all of that together, but if she does that, and then we can, a workshop or another meeting, and then
With her
take-
there.
With her, with,
and then go
Yeah.
on from there with what, you know, your suggestions or anybody else's suggestions on here. But let's see what she does with what we send in now. She's done it once. Let's see what she does
and
again.
Danny has already requested that she come here and work with us. So that would be at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
We voted on it.
Yeah.
And just to remind y'all,
So can I give her a copy of this?
she already, oh, yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent her, am I allowed to send her a copy of it?
I mean,
Oh,
y'all,
okay.
you've had conversations with her,
Okay.
correct?
I've had
Sounds great.
interactions with her as an
Yeah,
individual.
I mean,
Well, I
I've
think
talked
she
to her
has
about the
But she is
guidelines
not
for
there
minors.
right now, so
But I
take
mean,
that
I
into-
didn't know that I thought this was our issue, not her issue, so I was trying to implement her guidelines with our issue.
Take that into consideration, though, if you don't hear from her right away, she's out sick, on sick leave until May.
Okay.
She's
Until May.
admonished us
Yeah,
to
until May.
get
That's
something
why
in
we
front of
paid
her
her.
staff, so
Okay.
I think that's what we need to do.
And I would say,
didn't know that. I'll send it to her.
I know
I did
y'all
not realize
seen
that.
this a lot because we've been discussing it a lot, but our collection development materials policy right now is about 2 paragraphs. So over and above that, this is more of an educational tool, like you were talking about with parents asking what books are where and how do we place things and stuff. This is a much more comprehensive and educational document than what we have right now. So you are moving forward and you can continue to refine it, but this is far and away better than what we have right now, which I think she's wanting to see. Again, we don't answer to her, but.
So there is a motion on the floor.
There is.
Yeah,
In a second.
So,
I
can I,
want to retract that motion and just, with what's been said, that we bring this tonight with the addition of what Henry has put on, we've done that, and go ahead. In light of, we get that meeting in May, and we can pursue there with her here with a workshop. I can do that.
It's fine.
Okay, so was that, like, you're just agreeing to our motion? Okay. So all those in favor?
Can you say the motion one more time? I'm sorry.
Okay.
We are going
Just state
to
it one more
accept
time.
this
We're approving this.
policy as it is right now with Henry's addition. And then we're going to send it to the state librarian, and then we can edit it at a later date. But at least she will have something in her hands to know that we are working on it. And that it will be,
We may have a meeting with her as soon as May, here with a workshop, and then we can,
so we had a motion.
We can get our questions answered about the proviso at that
yeah,
time.
and
Yes.
whatever we need to do to this policy.
So we have a motion and a second, and I'm asking all those in favor. Okay. And just so, you did get a copy of the agenda, did you not, Elisa, before the thing? So it was on there,
What was on there?
that we were doing this.
I know, that's why I sent mine to you 2 weeks ago. Because I knew it was gonna be on the agenda.
Okay.
I assumed that we would look at it, I guess that, you know what that means.
No, I did look at it. All right, so moving on. The youth card, library card application.
So this is different than what we have now. What we have now is you just decide that your child gets a library card and they have access to everything. If you don't want them to have access to everything, don't get them a card. What this does is it gives the parent or guardian an option of restricting what collections they can check out materials from, not physically go into, but check materials out from. So there's unrestricted, which allows full access to all library collections, including adult materials, restricted plus YA, which is children's, juvenile, and young adult. And then there's restricted, which is materials just in the children's and juvenile collections, which would be 12 and below. And again, YA is 13 through 17, or 13 until age 18, however you want to read that. But there's language in here, accounts for library patrons under the age of 18. Parents or legal guardians with library card accounts in good standing may apply for a youth library card. Parents or legal guardians are responsible for the selection and use of materials checked out by and are accessed with their children's library cards. They're responsible for the financial obligations associated with their library card accounts. They expire when the patron becomes 18. They must be present with a current valid photo ID to sign up for this library card. And while in the library, we wanted to remind people, we're putting this on there, while in the library, children under the age of 13 must be continually accompanied by a parent, guardian, or responsible caregiver. Another discussion that y'all had on here, the parent fills out if they want to be notified and where they want to be notified of everything that their child checks out. So these are the different categories. And for this, and I know there's several things that say this is not good. It's not good for you to do this. For me, this was the compromise, that this makes sense to give parents these options and, you know, a little bit of the liability to make sure that when you come up to the desk, they're checking out what they're allowed to check out is on library staff. But I think that we can handle this and manage this in a way that gives parents more options and hopefully helps with them checking out things from sections that they are okay with their children checking out things for without having to be standing right beside them.
This form, it really in substance didn't change, but a large part of what was changed was to clarify what youth meant and to use consistent language throughout it because there was some inconsistent language, but it really substantively hasn't changed from the last time.
So,
which we already approved.
So from my position, having been, you know, in conservative education issues and whatnot for a long 2 decades, what most of us have been asking for is for parents to be more empowered in the education process, including your organization. I would say that applies to the education piece of it. We've asked for parents to be able to make decisions about the schools they can go to, the kind of classes the kids can take, whether or not they can stay home but still come and participate in sports. We've wanted to empower parents, you know, as a conservative movement, you know, since the 80s. We've been focused on, like, the parents have the primary responsibility for their child. A lot of the sex education stuff we talk about, the parent gets to choose, the parent gets to choose. The parent's choosing here, and you guys kind of had a lot of this in the past. But the parent is the primary decider here with regards to what they get. The parent can choose whether or not they get notified. The parent can choose, and up to 13 years old, they can choose whether or not they're even here. And so at the end of the day, the idea that in a conservative community, we've moved away from that for this discussion about butts. And when I say discussion about butts, not like getting them out of here because they have a butt in the thing. It's the parents should be the ultimate decider for the access and information for their children, but we don't think some people are good parents, so let's don't let them have access to anything I don't like. And so at the end of the day, you know, the conservative movement loses some vigor in this case if you have to dictate what other people see. If you want to take that out of the control of the parents, and I don't remember what the meeting was or the whatever, but someone said something to the effect of, you know, I'm not, it was one of you guys, whether or not parents can choose whether or not your kids see trans stuff. Well, the library is not the only source of information. Parents are going to make that decision, you know, at home with this thing, with the television, with the 1,000 other media sources. Here at the library, the parent has the absolute, in particular with this, the absolute best voice in the education process that you can get pretty much anywhere in our government. These guys are saying you got to supervise your kid. They're saying you have the options here to make control. I mean, if the conservative movement is making progress, they got to take a win, and this is, for the love of God, a win.
Yeah, well, that was the goal, Henry, was to.
Okay.
That was the
So,
goal.
do we have a motion to approve this youth library card application?
I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Any discussion?
I do have a question. I remember in November very clearly, Ms. Aiken said young adult is adult. I could never consider a 13-year-old a young adult. A 13-year-old is barely a teenager. So I'm wondering, are we just avoiding that discussion, that we need a teen section and a young adult section in the adult section? Is that something that's just erased from our memory?
I will tell you that we sent this to her as well, and she was fine with this just as it is. She approved this. She did make some minor adjustments up here.
Well,
And in reality, she didn't think that we really needed to put any type of notification for the parents. And we said, yes, we need to have the notification on there if the parent wants it. So she knows exactly what this is.
The copy I have from her says restricted plus teen.
We don't have a teen, and that is one thing that she stressed, is that you need to make it a young adult. You know, you do not have a teen. You have a young adult. That's what we wouldn't go.
But I think that's why she stressed that, because we don't have a teen, so it has to be young adult. And is young adult appropriate? That's my question.
It's up to the
Yes.
parent. It says it right here.
We're adopting the terminology that's very, very common among all libraries, and that the young adult is 13 to 17. That's just a term. It's a terminology.
And it is ultimately up to the parents. My parent, my child, my choice.
So by approving this, does that restrict the fact that, what if we decide we want a teen?
She suggested that we,
No, I'm saying for future reference. Will we just update this?
I would say yes, we would.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything can be amended.
But for now, we can implement this and start
Starting-
putting,
When would it start?
We'd have to look
Yeah,
as soon as possible, and then we'd have to, we talked about this before a while ago, but we'd have to put out something that says for the next 6 months, publicize it everywhere that we have this new application, you have to come in and opt into this, and after that certain period of time, you can come in still, but the window of responsibility for us trying to choose for you has gone away. So we would publicize and say, for 6 months, we have this new thing, please come in and fill this out if this is a concern for you, or don't come in at all and leave your card as it is. Does that make sense? And then after that, it's just every new youth application, they would have to.
And if they leave the card as it is, what does that mean?
It means that it is like a youth card is now, it's unrestricted. But they can come in at any time after those 6 months. It's just for that time, we would be heavily publicizing that those of you who already have a youth card, we have these new options for you to take advantage of.
So 6-month rollout.
Yeah,
but we would start it immediately.
yeah.
as soon as possible.
Right. As soon as possible.
And summer reading would be involved in that, and that's the time where most of those people are all eyes on us. So we will do our absolute best to get it out to everybody that wants to change their, to opt into these options.
Yeah, we've already done a little bit of the back end stuff on this.
Just to see if this was a possibility at all with our system.
Still need to do some testing to make sure that everything works as it should, and then we need to train staff as well. So that's really all we need to do.
Okay, any more discussion? We have a motion, a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay.
Is that unanimous?
No, Danny, did not, he voted against. Okay, the next one is the review of materials policy. This is the last one.
And as a reminder, y'all had already approved this policy as it stood. Again, we sent it to the state librarian, and she made some edits and suggestions and everything, and